Wow. 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 Whoo! That was a butt kicking in the first half. That was a butt kicking take behind the woodshed from about the second or third, fourth series in which they traded some blows and went back and forth, and it was pretty measured for the first few series. And then LSU laid down the hammer. We still have a full 60 minutes to play, a full two quarters, and Miami has the opportunity to do in the second half what LSU did to it in the first half, but it's unlikely. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, breaking down LSU and Miami in the first half. Of course, the live chat is here for you guys to take part and mix it up amongst yourselves. We had quite a lively banter back and forth, three different occasions today, talking the Miami side twice and the LSU side as well. We have had lively banter back and forth, trash talking, predictions, condescending remarks going back and forth between the LSU fan base and the Miami fan base since the end of last season. And we have all been waiting for this night. We all, I believe, most of us, I have seen some score predictions that have been out of the range of what you would think possible. But basically, we all, it was close to a consensus, expected a tight, close game. I certainly did. And the reason I picked Miami was because of many more known factors than LSU having the unknown factor at quarterback, the unknown factor at running back, the unknown factors at wide receiver. But knowing that they were strong along the offensive front, although they lost their guard, Ingram, to the suspension. So that would hurt. And then one of their main linebackers who played almost full-time as a freshman with 5 or 6 starts, suspended for this game at linebacker. So I figured those into depleting LSU's depth. But I stated many times during the offseason that I would have expected that at some point this season that Joe Burrow would be a better quarterback than Malik Rozier. I was comfortable in stating that at some point this season, whether it was game 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, at some point, his development would surpass Malik Rozier, that he's a better player, a better passer, more skilled passer, but it may take a few weeks. So LSU may not get that kind of play out of him in week 1. They are. He's not dynamic. He's not tearing up the Miami defense, but he's doing what he needs to do. And when he is receiving the time, the only times Joe Burrow's not been effective in this game is when the pockets collapsed on him and he's not had the opportunity. Those are the only times in which he's not been effective in this game. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Please like, comment, and subscribe. We bring you the best in analysis from myself and the best bloggers, broadcasters, and writers in the industry on a regular basis. Check out the videos, regardless of your allegiance, your loyalty, your fandom, whether it's LSU or Miami or across the country in the Power 5 especially, or the Group of 5, but especially in the Power 5, please check out our channel. I am most likely at some point during halftime going to step away and provide this as an opportunity for you guys to load up the chat. And I believe most of you, unless you're on the LSU side, were anticipating and hoping and thinking it would be better right now to be discussing, let's say, a 17-14 game, a 14-10 game, instead of a 27-3 blowout. I'll let you know what I've got. I'll check out the chat. I'll leave you guys to talk it up. And if there are enough people on here at the end of the first half, at the end of the halftime, then I will leave the live chat up and you guys can watch the game and chat amongst yourselves. And if Miami's able to come back, then you guys can discuss and analyze the game. And if it continues to drift in the LSU direction and they continue to hold this commanding lead and the second half is null and void, then at some point late in the game, we'll come back and we'll discuss. And I will leave the chat up and you guys can talk about college football, whatever you'd like. You guys do that all the time, not necessarily talking about the game at hand or the topic at hand, but talking about whatever you guys want to talk about in college football. So going through my notes, right out of the gate, Miami goes 3 and out. there was tremendous penetration by the LSU front. Lawrence, in particular, penetration in stopping a running play on second down that really blew up the first series and led to the 24-yard punt from Feagles that was almost blocked. A one-handed attempt by the LSU special teams player. So Feagles, as was a theme throughout the first half, lousy punt, 24 yards. Burrow threw the little dump off to get himself loosed into the game, into the flow, to get the nerves out, to get the adrenaline somewhat pumping in the right direction and get himself calmed down throughout the little dump pass for 6 or 7 yards to get the first drive for LSU started. Threw a nice ball on his first deep pass when he was on the left hash, read the defense, found the guy on the right side, and completed that downfield. All right. First big downturn for Miami came with the targeting penalty against Trajan Bandy. Bandy was a impact backup, a guy that was on the field for considerable time last year that has been elevated into a starting corner position. Ejected for the targeting. It was a legitimate call. I would have been okay with going either way on the call because I don't think it was egregious, but at the same time, it certainly met the standard of the rule. It was forcible contact. He was running hard, charging, lowered the helmet, and made helmet-to-helmet contact. It is so difficult for these defenders to play defensive football in this day and age in these conditions of the rules today. It is just they have to completely change how they approach. I saw it all weekend with roughing the passer penalties, in which I thought it is impossible for that guy who is running like hell as fast as he can. He's running as fast as he can to put a hit on the quarterback for him to be able to, first of all, he's running as fast as he can. He's blowing by a defender, and he's trying to get to the quarterback and to see when the quarterback exactly throws the ball, number one, to be aware of that, and then also to be able to hold up and not hurt himself. I think they're asking these defenders to do too much. It's all in the sake of keeping the players safe, and I'm all for that, but it's almost impossible to play defense in today's football. All right, back to the game. Jeff Thomas, one-handed catch, and I thought even right there, Malik Rozier was off target. It was not a good pass. Thomas was coming across the field, had to clear the safety. Rozier delivers the ball. It was a bad pass, but it wasn't bad enough that Jeff Thomas couldn't make up for it with a one-handed 17-yard catch. So Lawrence Cager then gets free for a 21-yard catch down the other sideline when he beat Christian Fulton. Much was made of Christian Fulton stumbling on the play, and okay, he's playing his first football in 2 years. He didn't look the best. He wasn't the most fluid, turning his hips. But he was on Lawrence Cager. He was right there. He didn't get burned, but yeah, he got beaten, and the ball was delivered, and it was a big play for Miami for 21 yards, or down to the 21-yard line. Okay, the theme continued after that. Miami cannot convert on third down. So consider this. A number of those third downs are obviously third and long, and that puts pressure on the offensive line, especially the tackles. And we heard, as Todd Blackledge outlined on the broadcast many times, that the difference between Miami being, and I'm going to let this play out, this game and other games this season, I want to see this team play Florida State. And so I'm not going to completely annihilate Miami tonight after I, to a certain extent, defended the likes of Penn State and Michigan State over the weekend, and Michigan, although Michigan didn't get blasted and they were on the road. Yeah, Miami doesn't look good, and they don't look near elite because this is an LSU team that people are projecting to lose 5 and 6 games, me included, 7 and 5. But I had a difficult time predicting this game. I had a very difficult time because I think LSU has a better, more talented roster, top to bottom. Just the uncertainty at quarterback. And again, I have all the confidence in the world, and I especially do now, that Joe Burrow is going to be a better quarterback than Malik Rozier, and he probably is right now. So, yeah, Thomas makes the catch. Cager makes the catch. They convert the field goal, but they cannot convert the third down. They were number 125 in the FBS. A team as good as Miami with as many weapons as that team. That speaks of offensive line play, and that's reeks of quarterback play, poor quarterback play. 125th in the nation out of 130 FBS teams in third down conversion rate. And that takes into account and also includes Miami's games against the group of five and takes into account all those group of five teams that had to try to convert third downs against Power Five teams. And during the 3-game losing streak, 22% third down conversions for the Canes. And that went further down tonight, 0 for 6 in the first half. Bubba Baxa with the field goal, 38 yards, 3-3. For a couple series there, Miami, well, they had the field goal attempt to make it 6-3. Baxa missed the second one, but the likes of Gerald Willis, Jonathan Garvin, Shaq Quarterman made some nice plays, but especially Willis and Garvin, Joe Jackson putting pressure on Burrow. They made some good plays. They almost had the fumble return for the touchdown that was clearly reviewed and turned over, and the proper call prevailed that it was a pass coming out of Burrow's hand. But for a split second there, it appeared as though Miami was in great shape to get the turnover chain rolling and go up 10-3. But the play was called back as it should have been. Nick Brissett with a touchdown run from whatever it was, 60 yards. The blocking on that play, okay, it was pointed out by Blackledge on the game broadcast number 1 that Joe Burrow picked up on the defensive alignment and the blitz coming off the edge, and he steered away from the blitz, and he changed the play to run the ball away from the blitz, and that took 2 Miami players out of the play. The play was blocked extremely well by the LSU offensive line that needs to receive a ton of credit because the Miami front is extremely good. The front seven's good. And yes, Burrow's had some pressure on him on occasion, but he's been pretty clean back there throwing the ball, and the run blocking for LSU has been really good against Miami's front. So kudos to the LSU offensive line, especially missing their left guard, Ingram. But Brissett, takes off for the touchdown. He was untouched. He didn't have to break any tackles. Usually when I see a run like that, I will set it on DVR. I'll back it up a couple times because I want to point out, okay, who missed tackles and who made outstanding blocks. Well, it was a completely blocked play. Brissett didn't make anybody miss. Miami was blocked out of the play. LSU got some downfield blocks from wide receivers and tight ends that were picture perfect. And Brissett scores the touchdown, and it's 10-3 LSU. Brissett, next time LSU gets the ball, he goes on the 4th and 1 around the 50-yard line. They convert that. Later, Burrow, again, smartly draws Miami off sides on the 4th and 1, gets another third down conversion there, or a 4th down conversion. And then Burrow up top to Jamar Chase along the left sideline. Could have been a touchdown. Didn't matter because Brissett scored on the next play. Or Miami fans might be clamoring right now, and I'll check the chat, because it appeared as though Chase might have lost the football on the way to the ground, which should have brought the ball back. Most likely LSU kicks a field goal and not score the touchdown to make it 17-3. So LSU's dominating this game, but they appear to have gotten a bit of a break there that turned into another touchdown on the Brissett carry from 1 yard out, 17-3. The Eagles with another 22-yard punt. LSU gets a field goal. It's 20-3. And then the play of the half, the one that really was the microcosm of the first half, was the deflected pass by the nose tackle. I don't have his name. Should give the guy credit. He made the play of the game thus far. Deflected it into Jacob Phillips' hands. He runs for the touchdown from 45 yards out. And that was the apparent backbreaker. Apparently, this will be the backbreaker of this game, was the deflection for the interception and Jacob Phillips going to the house, the sophomore, with a pick six, and it's 27-3. Miami pinned LSU deep. They made 2 mistakes. The first one was actually a bad call against the Canes. Mike Harley did not touch the punter. The punter did a good acting job as their coach to do. And they get instead of the ball out to the roughly LSU 40-yard line from the Miami offense to negotiate the field with about 90 seconds left at the 40-yard line. Mike Harley called, fortunately, it was the wrong call, but at least it wasn't roughing the kicker. It was running into the kicker, so they give LSU the other chance. And then this is a rule that we don't see very often. It may have come into play here in the last 2 years of college football, where Russo leaped the shield being the two players that shield the defense on the special teams coverage from the punter. And we see it in the NFL all the time. No leaping. It's an athletic game, football, but no leaping. I think it's kind of idiotic, but I guess guys get hurt. I don't know. I don't know that I've ever seen anybody get hurt on a play like that. But no more allowance of players on special teams leaping over the line, leaping over the stack, leaping over the shield in this case. Otherwise, Miami gets the ball at the LSU 40, 45-yard line. They've got 90 seconds to try to make a couple first downs and at least get a field goal kick off. Tough break for the Canes. It was the correct call by the book, but not necessarily the kind of call that I like to see. I like to see, unless there's an egregious penalty, I like to see the teams be able to decide the play on the field, not the officials to, after Miami forced a punt, to give the ball back to LSU to run out the first half. Maybe Miami scores. They go 27-10 at the half. Maybe they kick the field goal. It's 27-6. Maybe LSU stops them and it's 27-3 as we stand right now. Who knows? I do know that Miami's offensive line, as was pointed out on the broadcast numerous times, it's obvious this is the big difference between the two teams. It's the big difference right now between Miami and pick your school in the top 5 in the nation. Your top 5 to 10 teams in the nation. That is the difference between Miami. Number one, it's the offensive line. Number two, it's the quarterback. And that's what it's been going back to last season. That's what we talked about the entire offseason. And that apparently, according to one half of football against a quality team, a very talented LSU team that was disregarded by a lot of people. I didn't disregard the talent. I just thought there was too many unknown commodities on the field to pick them to win too many games this year. Maybe they'll prove all of us wrong. So Miami has some work to do here in the second half to get back in the ball game. They're going to have to rely on playmaking down the field. They did run the ball there for a spurt or two on a couple drives in the first and second quarters. With DJ Dallas in particular, they got to get back to that. They can't go pass heavy completely. I would say a 70-30 ratio of pass to run, you would think, something like that, but they can't completely abandon the run and put this game in Malik Rozier's Rocher's hands. 0 for 6 on third down, and the offensive line was bad, and Rocher was not awful. He didn't play an awful first half. He didn't make any huge mistakes. The interception was not his fault, but he's just not an elite quarterback. He's not a very good quarterback. He's a decent quarterback. If we rated all the teams in the Power 5 in their quarterback play, he would rank in the middle somewhere. He would be the 35th or 45th best quarterback in the nation. Something like that. Let me check out the chat. I'm going to keep it up, I believe, in the second half to allow you guys to talk college football. And worse than all that is Miami killing my prediction record for the first weekend, which was 12-5 against the spread coming in. And I agonized about this one because I thought all off season, I thought if LSU gets more than a field goal, I'm going to grab that. And it was 3.5. But I went back on my call and thought, it's only 3.5. And Burrow at quarterback, we don't know what he's going to do. And new running back, Nick Brissett, or whoever they're going to play. Curry played considerable time. There's just too many question marks for LSU. And if Miami worked on pass protection, and if they worked on Rocher playing better football, taking care of the football as he failed to do the final 3 games of last season, and more than the turnovers were just the poor passes. And he didn't throw any horrible passes, but he's off target. The last drive that they had, he had a difficult throw to the sideline, But again, a top flight quarterback makes the throw. The wide receiver turned and he was there and he was open and he overthrew him. And the wide out, I believe it was Jeff Thomas, barely got a hand on the football. We're almost ready to play the second half. And again, if I've got a number of people on here, I will allow you guys to stay on the live chat if you'd like to talk LSU-Miami or anything else in college football. NCIS Fanatic 21. The first thing I saw when I opened up the live chat was who's better, Jalen Hurts or Malik Rozier? And man, I'm going to have trouble pronouncing that the rest of the season because I'm so used to saying Malik Rozier that I'm trying to say Malik Rozier. And so I'm going to work on that. Maybe I'll do that all night, or maybe he won't be playing long enough for us to need to do that. But N'Kosi Perry, as we outlined today, suspended, didn't make the trip. Weldon would be the backup. He would be the next guy to come into the lineup. Mark Richt is being talked to right now on the sideline by Holly Rowe. And I'm sure you guys have a ton of good stuff to say, but as long as they're playing football and it's still feasible that Miami can come back, I'm going to watch the football. I'm going to leave up the live stream. You guys enjoy yourselves. LSU has the football. They're running it on the right side, and they got themselves almost a first down on the first play of the second half, just about 8 or 9 yards on first down. That doesn't bode well either for this Miami defense, which played a decent first half, but they did get chewed up a bit. And when Burrow had time, he carved up the secondary, as most quarterbacks will do when they've got time. But again, this is a first-year starter. This is a first game starter against what's supposed to be an elite defense. Miami with a good play on second down to push back LSU's offensive front on the left side, and we've got about a 3rd and 4. All right, folks, we appreciate it. I will be back here either if this tightens up, I'm going to wait until the end of the game as I anticipated to do. But if this is a rout with 5 minutes left in the game, we'll come back here, give our final analysis, which, unless things change considerably, is going to be close to what it is right now. But more than anything, I want to hear from you guys. I gave my analysis of the first half. I want to hear from you guys in regards to, is LSU really better than we thought? Is Miami not as good? Again, I don't want to jump to conclusions as many people did during game number 1, but this is a pretty decided butt kicking to this point. I think it's not quite the situation we saw with Michigan last night on the road, losing by 7, or Michigan State and Penn State getting by group of 5 teams. Anyway, I'm going to leave the live chat up. You guys talk amongst yourselves. If you want to stay on, I'm going to check out some football. I will crank up the sound, but you guys can obviously watch the game where you are. I will be back after the game to talk Miami LSU and anything else you want to talk about in college football. This is a good time, as this game's out of hand right now, to let you know that our weekly newsletter is coming out, the very first edition, tomorrow afternoon. Tomorrow afternoon, our weekly newsletter, and whatever we decide to call it. But most importantly, it's going to be my take on the weekend. It's stats, trends, and statistics, facts, other information that you're not going to find anywhere else. It's a channel update as well. So send your email to MarkRogersTV@gmail.com. All right. And this is something that's being mentioned on the chat right now that I said a number of times during the off season. For as much as I was looking forward to talking about this game after the game had concluded, because I thought it was going to be a great game, and there was so much talk from the Miami fans who watch me on a regular basis and the LSU fans who watch me on a regular basis, I just thought it was going to be a fun time after a great game. And I pointed out a number of times during the season when people were trash talking on the chat, I said, just make sure we'll take all the trash talking, but deliver, be loyal, be a stand-up person. When your team loses this game, whether it's LSU or Miami, be a stand-up person and show up at the end of all this and show up for the live chat and take your beating defend your team, give up, say, we suck, whatever you want to say, but show up. Because you're talking trash right now, show up for the final conclusion of this game. That's what I would like to see. Had an Arkansas fan the other day who was laughing at me for picking Arkansas to go 5-7. I didn't think that was that laughable. Anyway, Arkansas, according to him, is going to go 8-4. And I said, that's fine. You can make your prediction of 8-4 for Arkansas, but just make sure that so for the first week of December, after you've called me an idiot in August, that you come back and you stand up and we have an interaction at the end of the football season, whether you're right or I'm right, and then we can exchange it and it'll be fun. All right, we're going to check out what I believe now is Miami's first possession, or LSU's guy. Yes, Miami's got the ball. Miami's got the ball. They forced a punt. They've got the ball in decent field position. You guys enjoy. I'm going to watch the football. I'm going to leave the sound up. I'm sure you don't need that, but just in case. And we'll go from there, and I'll let you guys chat it up. Sounds like Rocher made another mistake, not passing, but this time play calling at the line and not getting Miami out of the play that he should have gotten them out of. Let me see.
Like to see on the Big 12, the referee. Ball started. 62. A Mahoney, redshirt junior out of Malvern, Pennsylvania. A lot of terrific football players have come from that school over the years. Now it's even longer. Third down, 9 penalties for Miami. Barely into the second half. To save him. Teams have more penalties than first downs. They have 8 first downs. Rozier never give a chance. Run the sideline by Christians. They were trying to block just the best pass rusher with the back trip is hard. You're not going to make much hay blocking that guy with your running back. Zach Fiegels to punt. He was busy in the first half, punted 4 times, and averaged just 32.5 per punt. Jonathan Childs back deep. Good attempt to cover. Johnny Jones back inside the 25. Strikes. To the 44. Tackled by Travis Homer. Trying to get back up there on punt coverage. More and more people are finding themselves in a Chevy for the first time. You can too during the Chevy Labor Day sales event. Now through September 10th, use Labor Day cash to get almost $5,000 below MSRP on this 2018 Equinox LT when you finance with GM Financial. This Labor Day, discover why Chevy is the most awarded and fastest growing brand the last 4 years alone. Find new roads at your local Chevy dealer.
Marky, Bud Lights for everyone. Actually, I prefer an iced mead. Marky, Bud Lights for everyone and a mead. Is it autumnal? Bud Lights for everyone and one autumnal mead. Is it malty and full-bodied? Because I like it all. Cancel that mead.
Bud Light, for the many, not the few.
With the Capital One Picture Card, you'll earn unlimited double miles on every purchase every day. Not just the airline purchases. Think about all the double miles you could be earning. Holy, that's a lot of miles! Shh. What's in your wallet? Broke my personal record. No, good break. Good break. I'm so sorry we can't make your barbecue. I'm just sick about it. Different kind of sick. I can't work after surgery. How am I gonna pay my rent? All these bills. Oh, Aflac.
And they pay you cash in just one day.
See how Aflac helps cover everyday expenses at Aflac.com.
The quarterback for LSU last year for Danny Edley did a solid job. Started all 13 games, was drafted by the New England Patriots. They had an open position, not an obvious replacement. Joe Burrow transferred in from Ohio State as a grad transfer. Now for the summer, as you mentioned, when Ed Orgeron said that Burrow and Miles Brennan were ahead of the other two quarterbacks. That same day, they announced they were transferring. That really worked. The program led to that players' only meeting we talked about in the first half. And it was fixed for LSU. We are shocked about particularly Joe Burrow. Straight first down in the Miami territory at the 33-yard line. Gain of 24. It's a very safe play. It's a first down play action, max protection. You keep the tight end in, you keep it back in. It's basically a two-man route with an outlet. Burrow delivers a strike. Fourth catch of the night for Justin Jefferson. Right here. LSU came up in this position, showing heavy lineup. Like this is a run formation. Tight ends. Run 3 and 4 wideouts that are under center for 13 plays. And they really put this Miami team like that. He was excited to come here tonight. He's from DeSoto, Texas, about 20 miles away from AT&T Stadium. Second and short. Stepping inside the 20. Inside the 10. It's just shy out front. This is just a great vision. Number 7. Number 22. Loses it. Safety has his responsibility to maintain leverage, and he missed a tackle. Purcell was able to just take it out the backside for a big game. Stevens here setting with the running back by committee. That plan might change with the emergence of Rosetta. He wants to follow along. For him and so many other drivers. He's on staff now, is working with player development. Happy to be back at LSU. We're setting up for 100 yards rushing with 101. Second and goal. LSU. Bats the pass out of the air. It's an incomplete pass. It was clearly an incomplete pass. They chased the ball out near the 30, and now there's a Miami player who was in pursuit of the ball well after the whistle. Who's down? It's Jonathan Garvin, their starting defensive end. He was friendly fire, too. I think it was one of his own players that ran into him.
as they were pursuing that incomplete pass. Impressive drive right here by LSU. A couple of nice pass plays with max protection and the nice run, and now they're inside the 5-yard line.
I tell you, deserves a lot of credit. He's the offensive coordinator, Steve Ensminger. We mentioned earlier, longtime member of the staff. When Ed Orgeron was made the interim coach a couple of years ago, he made Ensminger the offensive coordinator. Point totals, yardage totals, jump play up. They went 6-2. And one, obviously, keep the job for the long run. Steve said, I understood when he went out and got Matt Canada. This was a shot at his dream job. He had to go get the best guy available. And so 1 year was a bad difference for Canada. It turned to Ensminger. So he was very happy to start to tight ends and beating his own. Tiger fans weren't sure that was the right decision. And 27 on the board against this Miami defense. Trying to come here through the first. To the fullback, Jordan Clark. And Juwan Johnson had the coverage. Missed Foster Moreau. I mean, he made the good decision to throw the ball away. Joe Burrow has done that all night to avoid the sack and the negative play. But he had Foster Moreau in the back of the end zone, and he could have got it to him for a touchdown. It's now Cole Tracy. After a brutal field goal kicking year last year for LSU, they used 2 different kickers with 16 to 27. That's awful for today's day-and-age excellent field goal kickoff. Tracy's had a terrific debut, and now one's good from 21 yards.
What a difference a year makes, huh?
This is another field goal time. Penalty through the third quarter. 30-3, LSU.
At AT&T Innovations, we give you more for your thing. Here, we're adding TV and movies from our unlimited plan to the powerful new Samsung Galaxy Note 9. The perfect device for entertainment and productivity.
So it's essentially the Ed Helms of devices.
How so?
Well, he's both very entertaining and very productive. You think? Yeah, I do, and that's my completely unbiased opinion.
Buy a Galaxy Note 9 and get 175% off. More for your thing. That's our thing.
Another man is dead. People make choices when we're not thinking about the way those decisions.
We know the Mighty Bird launders millions of dollars a year for the Navarro cartel. What we need to know is how he does it.
He leaves you up and spits you out.
You're a businessman, not a killer.
Have you killed other people?
Of course not. Kill people. Okay, guys, that's it.
Man, so more and more people are finding themselves in a Chevy for the first time. You can too during the Chevy Labor Day sales event. Now through September 10th, use Labor Day cash and trade up to this Silverado to get a total value of $11,000 when you finance with GM Financial. This Labor Day, discover why Chevy is the most awarded and fastest growing brand the last 4 years alone. Find new roads at your local Chevy dealer.
Be some gentle girl problems again.
Sunday Night Kickoff, presented by Nixa on ABC, is brought to you by Chevy. Chevy has earned J.D. Power Dependability Awards for cars, trucks, and SUVs.
So many great players over the years, both of these programs. Justin Tim recently went over to tonight. Miami. On the table with the Dallas Cowboys. Not enjoying this time. Miami getting it. 2, it's 30-3. Avery kicks on. Touchdown this time. It's returnable for Jim Thomas. Miami will start at the 31. A big problem last year for LSU, the kicking. You were out best available guys in the country. Here's Cole Tracy. We talked about the contrast between Jerry World showing his first game at LSU. That's his home field. There's an assumption about just that was a first to win it. And that looks like housing. And the other end, that's Multi Sports Stadium in beautiful Worcester, Massachusetts. Jerry World, they put 105 people in here, 105,000 people in here for football games. In the past, Cowboys Giants 2009, 105,000. He was not. The surroundings is 3 for 3 tonight. Fisher, 3 for 3. And we've spoken to coach Bob Chesney, who actually left Assumption after last year, now the coach of the game. He's not really expected to be a great talent. And he encouraged Tracy, even though at the time Bob Chesney thought he would come back to Assumption. He said, this is a real opportunity now for you to show your talent to a lot of people are going to see it. You should go. He is off to an excellent start. Fred Mitchell is the best kicker in the country. Seniors D2, D3.
Hey guys, I want to let you know that I've got a phone number for a call-in show that I'm going to use going forward. Just wanted to have this set up for post-game for this, which should have been a much more exciting post-game call-in show. But 860-325-3687. I'll put it in the chat. 860-325-3687. And I will put that on the board as well.
Remember that name if you were one of these football games. The next great coaches are going to be. Did a great job at Salve Regina. Great job at 2 winning seasons in 17 years before he got. Tracy played at 75 and 38 games. It's too high for Darryl. Coming off field with a little injury, trying to block Chesson on that pass play. LSU is very content at this point now to just rush 3 or 4, play safe, don't let anything over the top of your defense, force Rozier to throw everything underneath. Give any easy ones away here. His first 7 passes, 3 for 12 since Travis Fulmer to the 45. He was a big part of their success a year ago. They had one of the best running backs in the country that had jobs for keeping here. Really good special teams. He emerged as a very capable lead back who almost rushed for 1,000 yards. Well less than a full season as the feature back, he ran for 966. Grady Williams injured again for LSU. This time it looks like he's cramping up in his left calf. It's A.J. Dallas who came off after pass protection. Well, it's warm in the building, but it would be a lot warmer with that roof open. Busy time right around here. The Texas Rangers ballpark is right next door. They share parking lots. They played an afternoon game at 2 o'clock, so it's a little tough to get in and out of here. This game tonight with the Ranger crowd leaving and the football crowd coming into this spectacular setting. Here's the Rangers ballpark. Seems to be like it opened the other day, but they're building a new one. That's how close they are from the Goodyear one. I guess this was a little warmer for the announcers in the booth during that game in the afternoon than for us tonight. Yeah, this is climate control. They didn't miss a trip. I get a lot of baseball games in that park next door. It is not climate control. And that beautiful aerial coverage is provided by Goodyear from the end zone to the uprights. The outfield wall, in fact. Nothing comes between hard work and a goal. Goodyear, more driven. College football continues. Nice throw, good catch. Rozier to Lawrence Cager. And they're across midfield to the LSU 49-yard line. I would ask you this time, it looks like they're going to speed it up. There's 5.5 to go in the third quarter. But you're down by 27 points. The operation take on emergency. Absolutely. Doesn't mean you stop running the football, but you do need to pick up the pace. Hard-earned yard for Travis Homer. Now his junior year of West Palm Beach, driven back by Caleb Jason and Kelvin Joseph. One thing we should mention for Miami, they've not had a lot of success running the football tonight, 82 yards. It's tough to run without a hard-nosed blocking tight end. And right now, Miami, because of an injury to Michael Irvin, forced only 2 true freshmen at tight end. It's tough asking those guys to block a defense like this in your running game. Michael Irvin suffered a preseason knee injury. His hands he threw into the second.
Leon, you're a good guy. Appreciate you joining the chat, talking college football with everybody. You live in Baton Rouge. That's got to be tough. Going to work on Tuesday. Hopefully some people have some mercy on you. John, thanks for being on here on the chat. That's impressive. A lot of people run and hide, so that's impressive. You're joining the chat. You would be on the chat if Miami was winning big, and you could rub it in and trash talk, so you're on the chat. Lamar, got to be feeling good tonight. Appreciate you reaching out to Leon.
It's the first time I've seen it in force all weekend. Infraction. What are those names? Willis has been a force tonight up front for Miami. Good shot on the 35-yard line. Will be third down after we hear from Hollywood.
Jared Lewis has made some great plays that you set up front, Sean, and he's a great story. He sat out all of last season. They're going to go quick here. I'll get back to you in just a second.
Before he was here. Stephen Sullivan could not make the catch over Michael Finley and coverage.
Nice job by Finley getting that right hand up in there and just knocking the ball away. Good tight coverage. It's a good throw. It was caught, but it's out of bounds.
So here's Cole Tracy.
I guess this gives me an opportunity during the second half to work on my top 25. I don't have to wait until the end of the game, and then I can just slot Virginia Tech and Florida State. I'll just do that.
Are you a college football fan? Come check this out. Show me college football. It's never been.
I'm going to start working on my top 25.
Right here on X1.
Now you can watch hundreds of live college football games from conferences across the country with ESPN Free on Xfinity X1.
This thing's awesome. Can I order lunch?
Introducing ESPN Free on Xfinity X1.
Here's your Buick, sir. Actually, that's my Buick.
Your Buick doesn't have a roof rack. This is my Buick.
How are we going to fit your mom's Buick?
Easy.
Okay.
I like that new Buick.
Me too.
I was actually talking about that Buick.
I know that.
Did you?
Buick's fresh new lineup is full of surprises. It's Buick's kickoff event. Celebrate with this low mileage lease or current lessees for around $199 per month, or 20% below MSRP on those Encore models when you finance through GM Financial.
What if we could turn trash into money? Plastic Bank is doing just that by exchanging plastic for digital credits, redeemable for everything from food to education, and powered by IBM blockchain. When you understand the potential of new technology, you can put smart to work.
Human horsepower, NOS energy drink, high performance energy.
We're going to start with some very harsh clippings, then raise the cut up to a blunt angled lob. I'm retiring, you're my swan song.
What?
So this begs the question, you guys, do you think that Miami has any issues in the Coastal this year?
There are multiples on the table. One is cash, 3 are FHA, one is VA.
Do you guys think that Virginia Tech or anybody else is up to it?
But you got this. Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans makes the complex simple. Understand the details and get approved in as few as 8 minutes by America's largest mortgage lender. A million little things, a new drama, Wednesday, September 26th on ABC.
Check out the alternate angle coverage from Xfinity Sky Camp. Streaming live ESPN3 and ESPN app on Xfinity X1. Thomas on the return for Miami. Stumbles down after 20. Oh, more college football tomorrow night. The feast continues on this opening weekend. From Tallahassee, an ACC conference game to begin the year for 20th ranked Virginia Tech, number 19, Florida State. One of the new coaches this year was Taggart. Now the Seminoles will be kicking off this season on the college football megacast. ESPNU, ESPN News, ESPN3, all kinds of alternate productions. It's been a good year. Do you ever listen to the radio show? It's quite something. Yeah, some of us in Massachusetts have a hard time sometimes figuring out. They're talking about the quarterback matchup with DeAndre Francois injured early last year. That played a part in a subpar season for the Seminoles. He earned the starting job back.
Excited to see him back. I remember him when he was healthy the year before. The thing that stood out, he was a tough dude. He got hit, hung in the pocket, made plays. Glad to see him back in action.
Jacob Phillips caused him the biggest problem. Here's Holly.
Speaking of DeAndre Francois, was actually at Florida State practice a couple of weeks ago. And the thing that you'll notice with this offense is the tempo. They were running plays about every 8 to 11 seconds at practice. So I'm curious to see how that patella tendon injury holds up with DeAndre. I've been closely following his rehab on his Instagram story, though. I know nobody in America's worked harder to get back. So we'll see how he does with that up-tempo offense.
The girl on the sideline works hard at home. Does she ever go home? Does she ever sleep? So she's got 3 different houses, so she can kind of pick and choose.
Phillips was there. It was going to be a sack and a loss, but it was a glaring face mask.
This game is just.
Did you guys see what happened to UCLA on Saturday? 27-16 loss, or 26-17 loss to Cincinnati. Out.
The 4-man rush, but Phillips able to come free and just can't let go of the face mask. In great position for a sack. So be a night that Blake Rozier will want to forget as quickly as possible. And I think stunning to Miami. 14 starters back for that 10-win season last year. They won the ACC Coastal.
Austin, what are you looking for? Can you guys hear me? I know you guys are talking and not listening to me, but Austin's got a question. I don't got my mic on. So, Austin, you're asking, what do I think of what loss? Oh. I think that's an awful loss. That's going to be, on paper, that's their easiest game of the year, and they lost it. They've got Fresno State and Oklahoma non-conference.
To the 47-yard line. We go 2 minutes left in the third quarter. Good tackle for LSU. Miami certainly will play better than they've shown tonight, and they're playing good enough. The talent to win the ACC Coastal game. That is well within their reach. The elite teams at the end of last year, and this team in LSU, particularly defensively, it's going to match up very well. 3 in the third quarter with the score 33-3. A minute 30 to go.
Wow.
Flag.
Okay.
Saw Von Richards. Catch time.
Offense, number 55, 5-yard penalty.
You've said it a couple times tonight. They think he's a dynamic playmaker. He says he's fully healthy after an injury-filled season a year ago. But he's been a total non-factor here tonight.
You know, 1 catch, 9 yards, 2 times they've thrown to him. I know LSU's got some guys who can cover it, but sure they're good enough to completely take him out of the game.
Down on the field, it's 3rd down and 8. And it's just the last time. Jim Thomas the catch. This is confirmed. They have a catch in bounds at the 26-yard line.
This is a phenomenal effort by Jim Thomas. Keeps his eye on the ball, stops it, goes up for it, and gets 1 foot down, which is all he needs.
Wow, tremendous.
You guys are going to love my top 25. I'm going to catch all sorts of flack for this top 25. I think I've explained it in the past, but we'll see.
Meanwhile, John Battle on the ground, perhaps the latest with a cramp. Avid photographer. You know who that? Hollywood. John Battle. Yeah, since Alyssa took up photography a couple of years ago. It was all over campus. Holly was with you. Practiced the other day. Then she did a WNBA game. Is that Friday night? In Phoenix. The Mercury. America's team, the Phoenix Mercury. Diana Taurasi. Her big brother.
After further review, the ruling on the field is confirmed. It's a catch, first down, and a defensive injury. We said 40 seconds. Snap on my signal.
I think they need to find a way to get Holly involved tomorrow night in the megacast.
Well, I would, except for your Phoenix Mercury, Sean, that I know you're a fan of.
Yes.
Forced to Game 5, so I'm headed to Seattle. You can catch that on the ESPN2 Saturday night, Phoenix versus Seattle.
Saturday night.
No, Tuesday night, sorry. Yeah, I'm almost there.
The Eagles have 4 games between now and Saturday night. Go Mercury.
How bad is this game? They're talking about the WNBA. They are talking about the WNBA during a college football primetime game.
Devin White's getting some playing time here, sophomore from Livonia, Louisiana. Even if there's a lot of backups on the field for LSU, the starters are out there for Miami. We have got to get the ball down. Something good to happen for us. They get a touchdown on the board. Just to the 20. Step back. And Jacoby Stevens.
you after this message and a word from our ABC stations.
Here's your Buick, sir. Actually, that's my Buick.
Your Buick doesn't have a roof rack. This is my Buick. How are we gonna stay in your mom's Buick? Easy. I got your Buick.
Me too.
I was actually talking about that Buick.
I know that.
Did you?
Buick's fresh new lineup is full of surprises. It's Buick's kickoff event. Celebrate with his low mileage lease for current lessees for around
I should turn some baseball on.
20% below MSRP. Post on form models financed with GM Financial.
I'm working on my top 25. Let's see who won big in the group of 5. UCF.
That really is this life, but identity is stolen every 2 seconds. See if your social security number has been compromised with a free dark web triple scan at Experian.com/scan.
It's the $3.49 King Meal Deal. Get 2 sandwiches, fries, and a drink for $3.49. Get 2 cheeseburgers or 2 chicken juniors, or 1 of each for just $3.49. Or get 10 nuggets for just
Conference USA. Did anybody win a big game?
John killed himself. John.
No.
How does this happen? Why did he do this?
Makes no sense.
Independence BYU with a win over Arizona, Florida State, Notre Dame, Michigan. Okay, Mid-American Conference. Mid-American, anybody win any big games? Who did Toledo beat? Toledo, Miami coming up, right? Toledo, Miami. That game's next week. After Toledo beat VMI 66-3 and hosts Miami. How is Miami going to come out next week against a decent Toledo team?
Or get $1,000 cash back on a new 2018 Camry. Find yours at buyatoyota.com. The deal's end September 4th. Come in today and get yours before they're gone. Toyota. Let's go places. When my wife Andy and I moved to Connecticut in our 20s, we thought we hit the jackpot. But now, after a generation of political leadership by Republican and Democratic governors, too many of our kids and businesses are fleeing the state. I want to change that. Investing in education.
Mountain West. Boise State. Air Force.
So our families are excited to live in Connecticut.
Hawaii's 2-0. Nevada. Who did they beat? Fresno State. All right. I've got my at least list of top 25 teams that I need to consider. So after Virginia Tech and Florida State, I'm going to release my top 25 probably the next day. And I will need to explain this again this year, that it's not based on the games that have yet to be played. It's only based on the one game that was played. So what was the most impressive win? Most impressive win of the weekend. Can you guys hear me? What was the most impressive game of the weekend? The most impressive performance, considering opponent and dominance. It might be this one, LSU. Was it Auburn? Was it Alabama? 3 teams in the SEC impressing. Big time. Anybody else? Ole Miss had a nice showing. 20-point win as a 2-point underdog against Texas Tech. My kids love this commercial. They always have since they were little kids. My kids loved this commercial. Just the beauty of the sea and the whales and the cool music. Loved it.
You want to move weight? You come to me. Yeah. Kid was working for the federal government. But he was.
This season will keep your stories and dress on tape, just like those 80s. The only beer used to wear every college.
Austin, you feel bad for Dwayne Holloway, the wholesome one. Yeah. We've all been through it, right? As sports fans, we go through this. We build up, we get excited, we think our team has a legitimate shot to do something special, and we get let down. It happens to everybody.
Instant purchase notifications from Capital One, so you won't miss a purchase. Large, small, or very large. Technology this helpful could make history.
Of course, NCIS Fanatic 21, you're going to throw out Ohio State. I'm just going to brace you for the position that I'm going to put Ohio State in the top 25. They may barely make the top 25. You guys need to understand how I do my top 25. That doesn't mean that I think Ohio State is not a top 25 team, or let's say they finish 18th this week in my poll, in my rankings. That doesn't mean I think they're the 18th best team in the country, but everybody's only played one game, so I'm ranking everyone based on how impressive their performance was in one game, because that's the way it should work. So Maryland is going to be ranked up there. They are probably going to be a top 10 team. Do I think Maryland's a top 10 team? No, but I'm going to rank them in the top 10 based on their performance against Texas. Now, when they lose, they'll drop. Northwestern's going to get ranked ahead of Wisconsin because they beat a decent Big Ten team on the road. Wisconsin played Western Kentucky. That doesn't mean I believe Northwestern's better than Wisconsin. Okay? Anybody that's lost a game is not going to be considered unless Washington would be the consideration I'll make. Washington and possibly Michigan, because they played, especially Washington, played really close against Auburn. Come on, let's get a touchdown here. He almost threw a pick. Duke was impressive. I should probably start on a bottom 10. Donovan, Mark, need to see Dennis. I need to see Dennis. Yeah. Can you imagine if I would have kept track of all the comments Dennis made the entire offseason? I should have kept track of that. Well, somebody should have kept track of that, not me. But all the ridiculous statements that Dennis made the entire offseason. Are they going to score? They could score 4 touchdowns in 14 minutes. Can be done. It's been done. Not against that defense, but it's been done. Did you guys see what Nick Saban said to Maria Taylor? It's on the bottom line right now, and now he came out today and apologized to her. Did you guys catch that? I thought it was ridiculous. Did Kansas State win? Hey, there it is. Kansas State barely won. Wow. 27-24 to South Dakota. Okay. If you guys feel like calling in, the number is 860-325-3687. 860-325-3687.
You could get arrested. But one thing's for sure. You were wrong. Said it was no big deal. Putting off the tire rotation?
Maybe Bill Snyder's getting old. TCU, West Virginia. Okay. I have checked off how many teams for my top 25. 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 19. 2, 3. I've got about. You're
still here. What, Denise? We're for you. We stay with you too and through retirement.
So we're going to eliminate Texas A&M and Mississippi State. Ole Miss beat a good team and beat them by 20. Arkansas didn't play anyone. Georgia completely dominated Austin Peay. Okay. I believe Auburn might be the #1 team in the country right now.
During Kia's America's Best Value Summer Clearance, get 0% APR over 60 months or $2,500 customer cash for the purchase of a 2019 Sorento. Sunday night kickoff on ABC is presented.
Oh, wait a minute. Forgetting about this game right here. LSU might be #1. Who else was impressive? And how high do I have Washington despite losing? That game was a great game. That was a great game. I know it wasn't as high scoring as people like, but that Auburn-Washington game was really hard fought, tough, hard-hitting game. Great strategy in that game. Just guys got beat up in that game. This is going to make me 12-6 against the spread. Okay, who else? Cal was impressive. Now I'm trying to be able to compare who beat good teams versus who was dominant against not so good teams. Well, Oklahoma, they looked really good, obviously. So if Miami gets the stop here, it's 3rd and 10. There's 13 minutes left. They get the ball at midfield. If they can score in 2 minutes and it's 33-17 with 10 minutes left, they just gave up a first down. They just gave up a first down on a run up the middle by Joe Burrow on 3rd and 10. They shouldn't win this game. Wow, that was bad. Okay, 8. Cal beat a better team than Clemson. Oh, Texas. That was my last hope for Miami. Just a shred of hope. To stop LSU on 3rd and 10, get the punt, get the ball at midfield with 13 minutes left, score the touchdown in 2 minutes, be down by 2 scores with 10 minutes left. That was it.
The starter in there, but it was a spirited competition. Lost 2 of the combatants. Bill Narcisse transferred out in mid-August. Willis and stuff tonight is injured. So we've talked a lot about Joe Burrow being a graduate transfer quarterback. It's become such a popular trend on the football. Graduate transfer quarterback. This year there's 3. It's the most that there's ever been in a single year. The first one was in 2006. A guy left Arizona, second went to Vanderbilt. A lot of time coaches didn't become that much of a big deal, but it has really become popular. But that last thing there.
Hey, Large Marche, I hope I'm saying that right. What do you mean by the NCAA ranking Miami high? I guess I don't understand that. I feel that the NCAA ranked us too high so that when we lose, we look like big-time schmucks taking our confidence. NCAA hates the U. What kind of poll does the NCAA have? You're talking about the rankings?
Your system and get to know the teammates. That's a difference for Burrow because he has been student and graduated in 3 years. He has 2 years of eligibility. I think most coaches only have a guy who has 2 years of eligibility. It is so difficult. I mean, get everything down there. How about how honest he was, Joe, when we talked to the other day, setting down 2. You know, this 23.
talked to Andrew who said this doesn't matter, that he only had 2 years left. He said, no, I want the guy that will win now. That was the most important thing to me. He didn't care about the time left or if they were going to try to develop my but they want to win right now.
And here they were some of the top of their coach on the hot seat. It's beautiful. And some people at least for another week or two. Carmen was injured earlier back out there. But that was very positive since like some of those off the field things that we talked about. He thinks they had a great camp, he likes the talent level. But they have one of the toughest schedules in the country. They do.
That's why I thought at the very beginning of the show, I thought this game was more LSU than it was for Miami because of what comes next. Their schedule is not friendly.
In fact, in 2 weeks, they're at Auburn on that big win. Auburn yesterday against Washington.
Compare their schedule to Alabama. Their crossover games are Florida and Georgia out of the East. A little bit different when Alabama draws is their crossover.
LSU, thanks for second time out. We set the game clock to 10-12.
So with the timeout, fourth down upcoming, we'll step aside and return to Arlington, Texas after this.
For those who thirst for more, Coors Light is colder, cleaner, and crisper. To refresh you for what's next. Coors Light, the world's most refreshing beer.
Don't forget that the past can speak to the future. Don't assume the substitute teacher has nothing to offer.
I'm going to be back in about 5 minutes. You guys keep talking, do whatever you want on the live chat, and I might as well fire up whatever analysis I have in the post game, and we'll talk about it. And we might as well get started here in just a minute.
The powerful backing of American Express. Don't live life alone.
I had a serious visions when I was younger. After the dream of the same song would be stuck in my head. I saw light.
Next Tuesday, next September 7th, $3.
Lemonade! I'll take a cup. I got this, kids. A cup of lemonade. Thanks. Time to pack up. So, kids.
Every Sunday, too. Every hot game, every Sunday, numerous charges. Nothing good. I want to look for a TV.
Big Taylor is back. Never get shot. Beat up by fire, chased by melting air, cheese and golden toasted butter, mouth-watering flavor, jaw-dropping fries. Sharp oil slayer starting at $1.25. Only $1.25.
I'm the play-by-play announcer who's in your ear all game long. The more praise they heap on your team, the more excited you get. Touchdown! Now, you don't hear the upstairs toilet overflowing, but I don't mean with confidence. You wanted a bowl season? You got a bowl season. You'd like to show up on game day? Imagine what could happen the rest of the week. So get all state. Better defensive maker like me.
The Good Doctor returns Monday, September 24th on ABC.
The LSU players' only meeting was led by Devin White, and you can see the All-American candidate linebacker is in there right now on coverage team. His message to his guys was everybody has their orange on. A lot of young guys are going to have to step up. And if you look at the number of starters on this team right now, that's the story.
Yes, and some of the younger guys seem to be offended by the suggestion they had to participate on special teams. These guys are 4-star recruits, 3-star, 5-star recruits. There he is, leading by example. I'm not sure I'm the best linebacker out there in this situation.
Did you see who was in the punch shield? Rashard Lawrence and Brandon Mahomes. They're two starting defensive linemen who were in the punch shield.
I think they know it's still a game. It is. It's still a game. It's not much of a game. It's surprisingly more something
That's a throw that Roger needs to make. He had protection. He picked up that blitz from the outside. He threw it behind Thomas. He's a fast receiver running a crossing route. That ball has to be in front of him. That's an easy completion. Pass that time by Roger. Talking about the lack of presence of Lamont Richards tonight. One catch, and he has not been on the field. These last few series on the sideline. Does anything wrong with him? He certainly doesn't look to be in any sort of game. This is a mistake by the left guard, the left tackle. These two guys are just going to move and get out. Jason is going to just come right between them. Somebody has to step down. It's only a 3-game punishment. He was unavailable to the third down at 18. Shoot, scrimmage. Pass and rush. And then Roger will need time. Jim Thomas with a huge play for Miami, 52 yards. That's a beautiful throw by Roger. This is their defense. You got 2 seconds. They let the receiver get behind him. Jacoby Stevens, number 3, tried to cut in front and go for the football, and he missed it. That's a big completion on 3rd and long. Roger. To go. Roger, single coverage. It's a touchdown. Calvin Joseph, the freshman with tight coverage. It's true freshman against true freshman. Malik Roger on the deep post. And drops this one in the bucket. The outside shoulder. Touchdown. Some of the wide receivers in the country played the U.S. Army All-American game in San Antonio. Big extra play here. It's a 2-score game. So you'll be here to help protect my car?
State Farm will be here.
Okay. What about here?
Yeah. Nice. My screen didn't crack.
Oh my goodness.
Obviously.
Here?
I don't think so.
That makes sense.
But what if we are? Here too?
Awesome.
That was my fault. Go with the one that's here to help life go right. State Farm.
Some cashback cards send you on a journey to get your bonus cashback. First, they make you sign up for bonus cashback, and it's only on a few categories. And when those categories change, you gotta sign up again. When does it end? These number one quick silver card, you earn unlimited 1.5% cashback on every purchase every week. It's like a cashback oasis. What's in your
From the creators of Dr. Pepper, that was the story of a town where every day is Saturday and everyone is a fan. And this fall comes the most dramatic season of their lives.
Listen, where was that man? Everyone was into it.
The official drink of fans, picking up this fall.
Like leather, skin is stronger when it's hydrated, but 9 out of 10 men don't get the hydration their skin needs. That's why Dove Men Plus Care Body Wash has a unique hydrating formula to keep men's skin healthier and stronger.
This season will keep more stories interesting, just like those Yankees, the only beer used to wear every college football.
Those engines keep it interesting.
When you're America's best value, you don't need a whole lot of hoopla. What you need is a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty and the highest ranked mid-size SUV in initial quality by J.D. Power. When you've got all that, who needs borrowings?
During Kia's America's Best Value Summer Clearance, get 0% APR for 60 months or $2,500 for cash on the purchase of 2019 through. Retailer. So I'm anxious to hear this from John Gruden and Will Mack talking about trading. Will Mack traded by Hilton and Gruden to the Chicago Bears.
As soon as we know the Canes can't come back, we'll wrap it up here. But for right now, 33-16. It's a two-score game. LSU with the ball at its own 35. But Nick Brissett, 14-yard run, first down. They can't give up too many of those.
The last couple of possessions, LSU has been more concerned with trying to run clock. They have been being productive. Possession. So let's put a clock together and figure it out. Such a nice night. Just to get everything he could out. Johnson made Jefferson up with LSU. Jordan was a starting quarterback. Ricky was a starting defensive back. Sullivan's been an NFL guy for over 25 years, coached a lot of great NFL receivers. He told me actually that he really likes this. Thinks he's got a chance to be a great good first game tonight. One catch a year ago. It's 5 catches tonight to lead both teams in reception. Short first down. Does have all 3 timeouts left. 7:15 clock running. His defense gets the big stop. And MarkRogersTV start using timeouts right here with 6:40.
Okay, let's see what we've got here.
We have got a problem. A few problems, actually. We've got aging road, aging power grid, aging everything. We also have the age-old problem with bias in the workplace.
Really? Never heard of it.
The question is, who's going to fix all of this? Is that we can solve it? Business. Because solving big problems is what business does best. So let's take on the wage gap, the opportunity, the achievement, whatever the problem. Business can help. And I know they can help them too.
Big day today. Or maybe it's not. Maybe it's just a normal day in a normal place with normal crawfish prepared 36 ways. Maybe today you'll make that breakthrough. And maybe tonight you'll break through too. Maybe you'll rank it. Maybe you'll shine. Or today could just be one of those days. The unpredictable and the unencumbered.
Out of the 33 people on the live chat right now, I wonder how many of you have not signed up for the Mark Rogers TV weekly newsletter. And how many of you will not be receiving the weekly newsletter tomorrow because you haven't signed up? Land found. Mark, I'm digging the relaxed vibe. It's different. Well, see, you guys need to understand that this whole internet thing, even though I've been on the internet just like everybody else for like 20 years, but in terms of doing the online thing, and even though I've had this YouTube channel for quite a long time, I am a traditional broadcaster. That's how I was born and raised and brought up and schooled and worked in the industry. So I still have a very traditional broadcasting way about me. And so it's difficult for me to kind of slide into the way things are now that are a little bit more informal, casual. So you guys work with me, help me out. Buckeye State Sports, week 1 was made for overreacting. I'm not going to calm down. Boy, do I know that from listening to people yesterday. Okay, need to score in about 6.5 minutes. They could score in 3 minutes and be fine. They've got plenty of time. Remarkably, for as much as they have just gotten annihilated in this game. But here we go. Hey, Buckeye State Sports and NCIS Fanatic 21. Yeah, Ryan Day did a good job, and the Buckeyes offense was unstoppable. But that Oregon State offense last year was one of the worst in FBS. It was awful. And they brought most of those guys back, so they should be a little bit better. But still, it's the same personnel. They couldn't score against anyone and was awful, had no explosive plays. And that running back, Pierce, had a 75-yard TD and an 80-yard touchdown. Couldn't be caught. The Ohio State defense did not look good. Missed him. We're watching right now as it stands, unless something miraculous happens or unless Florida State or Virginia Tech just look like the New England Patriots tomorrow night. We're looking at the #1 team in the Mark Rogers TV top 25.
This is not serious. He is a key integral part of this LSU defense. David Rand, the defense coordinator, is just one of the best ever at LSU. A lot of us
So I think we'll finish up this series, and if Miami can't do something miraculous here, the game's over, and we'll knock out some post-game here.
Difference. Well, Carson was that he sees the big picture as a better understanding of the physical skills of rushing the passer.
This is one of their best players. This is probably their best pass rusher down right now. Chase on. NCIS fanatic. Our linebackers and secondary look poor. A bunch of freshmen that are learning the system. On top of that, Jordan Fuller was out.
Shore High School is also part of the state championship team. 2015.
Uncle Lou, man, you're great. You know you just need to do what you do because it's a really good stuff. It's entertaining. I love it. Love it. I do have a call-in number tonight. 860-325-3687. What I could take from Uncle Lou in particular is need to get the production deal taken care of with some software here in the off season. But yeah, we had a whole lot of fun yesterday analyzing the games right after the games were over. That was fun. But yeah, Uncle Lou, will have to have you on. I don't know if you saw my email. Anytime you want to come on, I'm here. Miami's got 3rd and 25. Okay, 4th and 4. Okay, they got a first down. Miami has been a complete dumpster fire tonight, and there's 5 minutes left, and they could score in 2 minutes. And if they get a 3-and-out or anything close to a 3-and-out, even if LSU gets 2 first downs, they're going to get the ball back with 90 seconds left and have a chance to tie the game if they get the 2-point conversions. As awful as this has been, they still have a chance to win. I don't think they're going to do it. LSU's defense is too good. Rebel Shaw, haven't seen you before. Welcome to Mark Rogers TV. This is a bit out of the norm here, so we're just hanging out watching football. And Rocher throwing a jump ball. Who knows how good these Miami receivers could play, these playmakers on the outside. They've got a ton of them. How good could these guys be if they had a chance to catch the ball half the time?
Receiver sees it, and as he stops to go up, hard for the defender to stop his momentum.
Buckeye State Sports, my boy, blames JT to a certain extent, but he also, my boy meaning my son, he is not real happy with watching the wide receiver play over the last few years. He thinks these guys are fast recruits, elite players, elite athletes, but they just don't make the adjustments to the ball. They don't make the hands catches. They don't fight for the football. They don't make the game-changing plays that the Devin Smiths, Jalen Marshalls, and Michael Thomases did. I watched those Washington wide receivers a couple drives against Auburn. Well, I watched every play of the game, but specifically on a few drives, those Washington receivers, and we talked about it after the game, those guys were making ridiculous catches. They were making ridiculous catches and adjustments to the football when the back shoulder throws weren't great. They were thrown far and outside, and they would keep their feet in and make great hands catches. The Washington wide receivers, it wasn't one of them, two or three of them. It was all four of them, Pounds and Jones and Fuller. Those guys were really good, and hardly any of them played last year. And so they've got next to no experience in a big game situation like that, and they looked really good. Ball game. There it is. There it is. Fehoko, the kid that made that sack there, is the grad transfer from Texas Tech, who was pretty much acclaimed. I should probably start up a new feed so anybody who's watching this, once it posts to YouTube, can actually find when somebody's going to say something here. That's all right. We'll just talk football. Here we go. So we've got 4 minutes left. LSU's got the ball. I can't imagine a situation in which Miami comes back from this now, although it is possible. They can get LSU to punt with 4 minutes left in the game, get the ball back with 4 minutes, and only need 2 scores. So it's still a game, and I'll stop if anything realistic happens here. All right, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, breaking down Miami and LSU. We've been on the live stream since halftime. And since we took in the first half and took in the LSU annihilation of the Canes unexpectedly, I thought this was going to be a down-to-the-wire one-possession game. I was wrong, as was most of College Football Nation. The Canes are not ready for elite company. They need to work on winning the ACC Coastal Division, and they'll probably be good enough to do that, and we won't see them need to play this kind of team in this kind of environment probably until the ACC championship game. But who knows? Maybe if a team like Georgia Tech is playing its A game and able to knock them off, they also have to make a trip to Blacksburg to take on Virginia Tech. We'll see what the Hokies have tomorrow night in Tallahassee against the Florida State Seminoles. Maybe a Coastal Division championship should not be taken for granted, because what we took for granted coming off 10-3 last year and 10 consecutive wins was that Miami was going to be able to fix problems at quarterback and offensive line. Well, we've got the same quarterback, and at some point, the talent is either there or it's not there. You can practice and practice and watch film and be coached by a coach who has coached offensive football for quite a long time at the highest level in the collegiate ranks in Mark Richt, and maybe Malik Rozier is always going to be this quarterback. It certainly looks that way. And this quarterback is not good enough to take a team to an elite level and win a championship, a conference championship. Unless they squeak home with a Coastal Division championship and then Clemson somehow doesn't show up for the championship game of the ACC. And I hate to talk in the future that far ahead. I ruled against that here just a few weeks ago as everyone was just looking ahead to Miami and Clemson. But certainly we want to give games against the likes of Boston College and Florida State and Virginia Tech, and those games the due that they are worth in this ACC race, because I would like to see it a little bit shaken up there in the Coastal and the Atlantic. Would be nice to see Florida State at home possibly take care of business against Clemson down the road and make this more competitive of a situation and less predictable in the ACC. But for right now, this night belongs to LSU. We've made it to a certain extent about Miami's ineffectiveness again, and we'll get to that in just a second. But let's talk about the LSU Tigers, because they are the victors tonight. And as I explained a few minutes ago, they will be ranked #1 in the first Mark Rogers TV Top 25 poll of the season. I need some water. They will be ranked at #1 because I rank it not on how good I think the teams are, but I rank it on the performance. And we only have a performance from one game, and they took a team that's most likely going to finish in the top 15 in the country, and they completely dominated this game. The only thing that kept this somewhat close were some freakish plays downfield in the passing game on that last drive. LSU letting up on defense. When this game was competitive, it was not competitive. LSU dominated. They dominated up front, and we'll run through it in just a second here. Let me pull up the stats, because I would like to see what the stats currently look like on this game with Joe Burrow in particular. (33-17) LSU with the ball, and the clock is ticking. Take out the box score. So coming into this game, this is what we knew about Joe Burrow. We knew that coming out of high school, he had scored and thrown for more touchdowns than any player in the history of Ohio high school football. He was much coveted across the nation, stayed home at Ohio State, competed for the job, most notably this last offseason against Dwayne Haskins, who looked pretty darn good in his first ever start this past Saturday against, albeit, Oregon State. So Dwayne Haskins may be a little bit more talented out of the pocket, throwing the football downfield, but Joe Burrow is showing us that he's a good quarterback. My only question in this, and I stated this a number of times during the offseason, was that I had little doubt that at some point this season, Joe Burrow would be a better quarterback than Malik Rozier. I thought that that might take 5 or 6 weeks to come to fruition. It took about 3 series to come to fruition. Joe Burrow did not light up the Miami defense. He didn't have to. He obviously didn't basically throw the ball much here in the second half. But despite the numbers not being impressive, he was 11 of 24 for $140. No interceptions, no touchdowns. The first touchdown of the game for LSU could have been a Joe Burrow touchdown pass to Jamar Chase, but the officials ruled Chase out at the 1-yard line. Joe Burrow from the first series, when he was harassed, when the pocket collapsed on him, he did not throw the ball well, as most quarterbacks don't, but he didn't make his mistake in those type situations. So he eliminated the mistakes. There were no mistakes in his game, and then he just let the defense take over when he had to throw it away, when he had to throw it behind the chains and not convert the third down. He said, okay, it's better to punt than throw the interception. Let's give it over to a defense that is completely dominating the other team right now. So Joe Burrow played an exceptional game. He didn't have to play over the top and score 45 points. He did what he needed to do, especially again in the first half. Now, if this game would have been close, his stats would look better right now because he would have been throwing the ball in the second half. What's impressive here is that there was much talk in the offseason about the LSU running game not being a known commodity like it typically is with Jeremy Hill or Leonard Fournette or Darius Geis coming back. This time we had no rushing touchdowns from the running back position coming back to the team for the first time since 1966. We had the least amount of productivity at the running back position coming back to the team since sometime in the 70s. But LSU's got a formidable offensive line despite suspending one of its best players, Ingram, at left guard. And they had 4 running backs to choose from coming into the game. They chose to play Brissett and Curry in the game. We do have 8 carries as well from Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 8 carries for 24 yards, most of that in the second half. In the first half, they had Chris Curry in the backfield who had 3 carries. But most of the time, the effective plays have come from Nick Brissett. And I've got a call on the line. Hello, this is Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line? Let me hang on just a second. I've got to get you on the speaker. Give me just a second. Unfortunately, why is it not giving me the option to get you on the speaker? Hang on. There we go. Who's on the line?
DeAndre Crawford.
Oh, there he is. Mr. Clemson football. DeAndre, how you doing? It's good to be talking to you for a first time here. This is good stuff. What you got for me?
I'm kind of sad. Out of school I went to, East Carolina lost to A&T.
I saw that. 28-23.
Yeah.
What's happened to your program there at East Carolina? What's happened? That was always a good program. Beat Virginia Tech a few times in the last 10 years. Always a really good program under, oh my goodness, I can't believe that I can't remember your coach's name.
I forgot a guy named too. He's at Oklahoma right
now. Oh
now.
My goodness, yeah. Yeah.
They should never let him go. But I think Montgomery's going to get it together.
Seems like a nice guy, but I don't. Okay. All right. Your Clemson Tigers didn't have much of a game yesterday. They had the scrimmage, and I see that Trevor Lawrence got some reps.
Oh, yeah, he looked great. He looked great. That team started off kind of slow, but we got it together. And we'll have I think Texas A&M is going to be a tough game. The Heat, you never know what Jimbo's going to do. He's a good offensive coordinator. Texas A&M is going to be an interesting game. So I can't wait to see the game. I think Texas A&M got Notre Dame's old defensive coordinator too. So I think it's going to be a tough game for Clemson. So
absolutely. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting. Sure, go right ahead. Well, I was just going to mention that, yeah, the game being at Texas A&M, obviously we can't take a whole lot from what the Aggies produced in Game 1 against Northwestern State. They had their way up front. Travion Williams ran for 240 yards. That's obviously not going to be the case coming up this week. You got an interesting factor in Jimbo Fisher knowing Clemson personnel, knowing what you do on offense, what Brent Venables does on defense. So there's a known factor there. That's interesting. And obviously Florida State, despite all their problems last year, played you guys really well. And that was a game down to the last 4 minutes until they threw that pick at midfield. And then you guys ran away with it late. But with about 5 minutes left in the game, that thing was up for grabs. And so maybe Jimbo makes it a bit interesting this weekend.
Yeah, also that dirty hit on Carter kind of changed the game around when the linebacker knocked out Carter. Because Florida State wasn't doing nothing on offense to that time. But remember when Carter got hit by the linebacker on special teams and knocked him out the game? And Florida State wasn't moving the ball very well during that game. I know everybody said that game was close, but Clemson was up 14 minutes at one point in that game until Carter went out. And I think Florida State moved the ball very well against Clemson after that. But it's going to be a very good game between Texas A&M and Clemson.
So, what's your thought about this supposed team that you're going to play in about 12 weeks in the ACC championship game?
Well, I picked Duke, and I thought USC was going to be better.
Oh, that's right. You told me that. Duke.
Yeah.
And you guys are playing them this season, right?
Right.
In the regular season.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Duke's very good. The people sleep on them because of the academic school and the basketball school, but I think Duke is going to be pretty good this year.
Well, the thing that's interesting about
quarterback and defense.
Yeah, so you make a good point there with Duke, because we've already seen that David Cutcliffe has been able to pull that off. He did it in 2013, of course, got them to the ACC championship game. I ranked the coaches this year. I don't know if you caught that, but if you look at David Cutcliffe and what he's been able to do in his 10 years at Duke, his last 5 years are considerably better than his first 5. The guy's an excellent coach. He's never going to build that into an elite situation. They just don't have the right structure in place. But in that division, I think he got something going there. Daniel Jones has a ton of experience under his belt. They have recruited better the last few years. They've raised it from, top 50 and 60 classes to like top 25 to 30 classes. Retained Brown had a nice year as a freshman running back. He's back this year. TJ Romming at wide receiver. And you're right, the defensive personnel is really good.
Yeah. I think they're talking about three or four players leaving early for the NFL draft off that defense. I'm not sure, but I heard that Duke defense is pretty good this year. I'm not sure who the NFL players are, but that's what I heard on local talk shows around here about this football. I thought USC was going to be better than what they are. I'm very disappointed in what's going on over there. I thought they did a good job of recruiting, but lately they just haven't really been able to turn it on.
Yeah, Larry Fedora's had an interesting time there. It's just all of a sudden become a bit of a mess on him. When he had that really good team with Trubisky and Switzer and Mac Hollins and all those guys, Elijah Hood, just 2 years ago, and they go to the ACC championship game, and here we are. They're working on a second consecutive, just really ugly season.
Yeah, Marvin Williams led them to the ACC championship against Clemson.
Absolutely.
The quarterback that's with the Bears now beat Marvin Williams out. And I was kind of shocked that he would have headed to Deshaun Watson, but I always thought Carolina had a lot of nice talent, and they get a lot of good talent, but I just don't understand why Fedora can't win them. I'm a Clemson and East Carolina fan by heart, but some of these North Carolina schools could be better than what they do in football.
So, DeAndre, is there any particular team there in the Atlantic that maybe scares you a little bit more than the rest of us?
Florida State. Florida State is going to be really, really good. They got great offense. I know the offensive line is their problem. The offensive line is where I think they struggle at. They got good receivers. Ken Akers, they got at least like 3 or 4 good running backs. And French Waz back. I know he's not a really quarterback, but I'm sorry about that. But I think he's a really good quarterback. I don't know why people are sleeping on Florida State. And the game is that close. I think I told you this. I thought Florida State was going to beat Miami in the beginning of the year. And also, I think they're going to crush Virginia Tech. I don't think Virginia Tech is terrible, but I think they're going to beat Virginia Tech pretty good. But the way they run their offense with the wide spreads like Baylor used to run, I think they're going to run the ball on people very well. I think Clemson's going to struggle with that. That's why I picked Syracuse to Clemson last year. Remember talking about it. A lot of people say, "Oh, you always lose the team," but Syracuse offense gave Clemson trouble 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, when they went out there to Stones play with Deshaun Watson and the other guy. That's the same type of offense that Florida State runs. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if Florida State beat Clemson this year. And at Boston College, they're tough. I'm sure you heard me talk about their running back, plenty of times asking me about him. That dude was tough. He's a beast. They got a good defensive coordinator. And I'm friends with the athletic director right now, Marty Jarman. very good guy. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Boston College does. I think that Atlanta is very stacked compared to what it's been the last couple of years. So Clemson is going to have a hard time. It's going to be cold when they play Boston College. So
yeah, A.J. Dillon. Exactly. A.J. Dillon, as you mentioned, is a kid that was recruited as heavily as a linebacker. Nobody wants to get in his way defensively. A lot of kids make business decisions trying to get in front of the thighs and the hips of that kid coming at you in the hole. He was discovered, about 3 to 4 games into the season, was only getting about 6 to 8 carries a game, and then they just unleashed him on Louisville. And from then on, he was just a wrecking ball for the rest of the season last year. And Boston College is going to be an interesting team to watch. No question about that. My next question for you, you answered in regards to Virginia Tech and Florida State and kind of what you're looking at tomorrow night. So, and especially in light of what we saw Miami fail to do tonight, to see if maybe if Virginia Tech shows us a little bit more than what we expect, then we start to put them into play, thinking about that game in Blacksburg near the end of the year and whether that factors into the Coastal.
Virginia Tech got a nice quarterback, but I think they got too many people missing on defense. I mean, I think they lost their whole team defense to either suspension or graduation. So they have all about 2 starters left.
Yeah, the secondary especially was just completely ravaged, and they lost most of their best players. I had the numbers here, like 9 of their top 10 tacklers. But, of course, they're playing this all into the hands of Bud Foster, and he's figured things out before. But this might be a little bit too many puzzle pieces to put together.
Yeah, and it's early in the year. That was late in the year. I believe Bud Foster would have came out would have given him a lot of rough time. But that Florida State's going to be hot, so you can serve a lot of people. And so I think Florida State's going to run Cam Akers, and I think his name is Stewart, big guy number 9. After they just go ball at him and throw the ball on Citrus coverage, and I don't think Virginia Tech's going to be able to handle Florida State. And like I said, a lot of people are sleeping on Florida State, and I think they're going to be a pretty good team this year. And I could imagine them and Clemson battling out for the ACC Atlantic this year, and one of them making it to it. I mean, I know Florida State has a hard schedule. I thought Michigan's schedule was a little bit harder, but I know you picked the Florida State schedule to be the hardest. But man, I can't wait to see. I think it's Florida State and Notre Dame.
Yes.
Later on this year, that's going to be a whole kick of the game, man. Like I said, Clemson better be ready to play when they go down to Florida State and don't sleepwalk through it or take them seriously. Because I think Florida State has enough talent to be very, very good this year, especially if the offensive line can block somebody. I mean, last year they was letting people run past them and sacking the quarterback. I mean, Blackman got killed during the Clemson game last year. I mean, I was surprised how skinny he is. He was still able to get up. They was hitting him hard. Lamar looked like he knocked him out of the game at one point. But he got back up. That's a tough dude.
Yeah, they're not real interested in recent years of protecting those quarterbacks at Florida State because DeAndre Francois, they got him about killed the year before. And then, of course, they did the first game of the season against Bama. Then, as you mentioned, you see Blackman come in, and it just appears as though, you could basically wring that kid dry as a true freshman, man. He had just thin little pole legs, and but man, he kept getting up the entire season and made it through 10 or 11 games.
I'm waiting to see the South Carolina-Georgia game. South Carolina's another team, and I'm supposed to hate them, and they play East Carolina and Clemson. But South Carolina is a team that I think is going to beat Georgia this weekend. Not because they got more talent than Georgia, but I think they got more experience in that South Carolina. So I can't wait to see that game. I think Bentley's a pretty good quarterback, and Debo Sanders, I believe his name.
Sure. Yep.
I think he's an excellent receiver, and I know Georgia got a young secondary. But Georgia offensive line is a monster. I mean, that offensive line
one of the center came out of the high school that I came out from, in Gilliard, and he would play defensive tackle. He was like number 8 defensive tackle. They moved him over center. So I can't wait. I hope he does good, but I think South Carolina might have something for Georgia this weekend.
And consider, DeAndre, what you have to deal with Deebo Samuel. Last year, he only returned 2 kickoffs the entire season. Well, he only played 3 games before he got hurt. 2 kickoffs to him, returned both of them for touchdowns, and then nobody would kick to him again. And then he scored 6 touchdowns in 3 games. Unfortunately, he was lost for the season, and they missed their number 1 playmaker on offense. But he's back at it this year. So, yeah, Georgia missing a lot on defense. But, man, they have recruited just out of their minds. And we know that that's going to be the one game that obviously South Carolina needs to take them down head-to-head to gain the upper hand in the Eastern Division and have a chance of pulling off what none of us, hardly any of us, expect to have happen, and that's Georgia not to win the SEC Eastern Division. Anything else stand out to you this weekend, DeAndre? Did anything else jump out at you?
I know y'all get on me about picking on Michigan or Miami, but I think Miami's not overrated, but I think Michigan is one of the most overrated programs in history. And not because I just can't stand Michigan and Notre Dame. They're both. I wish that game ended in a tie. The only reason why I don't like not Notre Dame, I didn't like what they did to Willingham. They didn't give him enough time to turn around his team. You know, so I never forgave Notre Dame for that. But that used to be one of my favorite games as a kid: Notre Dame versus Michigan, Notre Dame versus Miami. I couldn't wait to see those games as a kid. I grew up in the 80s also. So those games was big on my mind, like Nebraska and Colorado, Nebraska and Oklahoma. But after some of those things I saw those guys do to Tom Whittaker, I never went back to liking Notre Dame or, care. But I like to see them in Michigan play and know the history that Michigan kept Notre Dame out the Big Ten all those years. And that's why Notre Dame is an independent school. And stuff like that, but I'm hesitant to say that Notre Dame is a college football contender because I want to see them play some more. I mean, I think they just got Michigan early, and Michigan need to work on their offensive line. But I can't wait for Notre Dame and Florida State, and that's going to be an interesting game. And I don't know who Notre Dame is got on their schedule. Stanford. Might give us some issues. I wish I would have got a chance to see Stanford play this weekend. Because it looked like they struggled with San Diego State in the beginning, and then they took off and won 31-10 because I had put some money on the game. So I was keeping an eye on it, but I didn't actually get to see the full game. So I can't wait for the Stanford Notre Dame game also. But I mean, like you said, it's early. Teams just filling out. You never know what's going to happen. But Oregon turned it on at the end of the year and beat Alabama and Georgia. So you never know what's going to happen at the end of the day. And I can't wait. I mean, I've been missing college football all season long. I still play NCAA 2014 just so I can get through the times there's no football on college or pro. And, so that's the only way I can cope with it. Now I'm glad it's back. And I don't want to lead too fast.
So you play 20.
I know how it is.
So you played 2014 when Deshaun was a freshman.
Nah, Deshaun wasn't a freshman on there yet. He wasn't on the game. That was the last year that was made.
Oh, I got you. So it was the 2013 season. Yeah, the 2014 game. I don't play any of that. So as soon as you said 2014, as a Clemson fan, I just thought I'd throw out the Deshaun Watson's freshman year there. But obviously, yeah, they were playing with 2013 players in the 2014 game. Not a video guy here, DeAndre.
Yes, sir. And see, a lot of people, I hear a lot of your friends, a lot of your followers say, hey, you just a Clemson fan because of Deshaun Watson. I think I told you this before. If you go back to the last play of the Wake Forest game in 1981, my Uncle Craig ran the last touchdown against Wake Forest when they beat them 84-24. That was the highest scoring game in Clemson history. He was playing fullback at that time, and he ran the longest touchdown in history. And also Jeff McCall came on my school that I went to. So I've always been a huge Clemson fan. Jeff Davis used to take my Uncle Craig home Jeff Davis from Jacksonville, which is like 20 minutes away, and I used to stop by Fayetteville and take my Uncle Craig home back and forth to Clemson. So I knew Jeff Davis very well too. So I've been a Clemson fan all through the 80s and 90s, and the 90s was just miserable if you was a Clemson fan. After 91, when Florida State came in beating everybody, it was just downhill. We just could never get over the hump with Florida State. I mean, I blame Ken Hatfield for that, for not changing offense, looking to go to the pass like most teams were. We were still trying to run the option when most teams were moving away from there. So I know a lot of people like, oh, you just a fan because of Deshaun Watson. Nah, I have always loved Clemson football, just like I love East Carolina football. I went to school there, and I grew up going to Clemson games. So, but I appreciate it, Mark, man. It's great to talk to you, and I'm glad I got a chance to talk to you on the phone. And I love following your show. You're the best college football person out there. I love Pinsky and Pete, but it's about the first person you follow, and you that person. And I enjoy talking to you on Twitter and Facebook and calling into your show. Now I can call in now. So thank you. And tell Alonzo, don't take it personal. I used to like Miami a long time ago, too. So I thank you for all your help, Mark.
Absolutely, DeAndre. Sir, what's great is that we don't always agree, but we have a good time discussing college football and learning from each other and going back and forth. So I appreciate it as well, sir. DeAndre, you have a great night.
You too, sir.
And DeAndre on the line, Mr. Clemson football, and taking us through the years of the Tigers going back to 1981 and winning the national championship. I remember that team with Perry Tuttle and Homer Jordan at a quarterback, Michael Dean Perry as well. William Perry, of course, before Michael Dean Perry. They were brothers, so it was William Perry, the Fridge, the more famous of the two, and then probably Michael Dean being the better of the two, but never got a chance to play for the Chicago Bears and carry the football and become famous as kind of a bit of a joke, although the Fridge was a great player, was an exceptional player, clogging up the middle as a defensive tackle. Anyway, we'd like to remind everyone that we have established our phone line tonight, 860-325-3687. I'll put it in the chat, 860-325-3687, and we'll hang on the line for just a few more minutes unless you guys have anything to talk about. I need to work on my top 25, and I will do that even though Florida State and Virginia Tech still have yet to play, and then I'll just be able to plug one of them in depending on how they perform and who wins the game, of course. All right, everyone. We got to see it, and to summarize what I basically said at halftime, because little changed in the second half concerning the performance of either Miami or LSU, is that Miami has a good team. I'm not going to completely jump to conclusion based on one game, but I think this is a strong indication because it was a big matchup against a team that most likely is not going to contend for a national championship. So Miami didn't go out tonight and compete against Alabama and get annihilated. They're competing against a team that I still believe is going to lose 3 or 4 games. I might be wrong, but LSU may still go out and lose 3 or 4 games. So they didn't compete, and most likely, we'll have to wait and see and watch the games against one of the very best teams in the country, and they still got manhandled. And the team did not play well overall. They made a lot of mistakes, but what should be concerning to Miami fans is the 2 obvious points: that the quarterback did not play well and the offensive line was manhandled most of the night. They did spring free for some nominal gains in the running game, but basically the offensive line showed once again that is the big work in progress, that they need to work on the player development of the recruits that they've brought in that point to better offensive lines very soon, but most likely not this year, 2019, 2020, based on the recruits that they brought in the last couple recent classes. What was disappointing for Miami was that the defensive play was not as good as you would think it would have been. They didn't give up gobs of yardage, but Nick Brissett hit them up as an unheralded running back, a kid that has not been able to see the field, and now he's entering his final season at LSU. He gets the football for the first time against what's supposed to be one of the best defenses in the country, and he tore them up pretty well. 22 carries for $125 was the last statistic that I saw on Nick Brissett. I would like to go to the stats and see what jumps out at me. So let's see. We started down this path. Burrow, 11 for 24 for 140. We put that in context. Didn't light up the defense. Didn't need to. Didn't throw it much in the second half. Didn't need to. If this would have been a close game, we would have seen Joe Burrow throw for 250, 275, something in that range, but he didn't need to. They didn't throw it. He got most of that yardage in the first half. He made the right reads and right decisions. When the Miami pass rush was effective, he didn't make any mistakes against that. He took the sack, threw it away, threw it out of harm's way. Yes, Nick Brissett, 22 for 125, a 5.7 yard per carry average, obviously helped out by the 50-yard run. And LSU ran it for $156 on the night at 3.8 per carry, but that, of course, takes sacks into account. There might not have been any. We'll see. LSU receiving. So this is a crew that we had question marks about because aside from the Texas Tech transfer, we didn't know a whole lot about these guys in regards to what they did in college. Yeah, some of them played, caught 15 or 20 balls last year, but Justin Jefferson looked good on 5 catches for 81. Jamar Chase had the one catch down the sideline that went out of bounds at the 1 yard line that set up the first touchdown. That was his one catch on the night for 22 yards. So there wasn't a whole lot here. Jonathan Giles, the kid that's used to catching a whole lot of passes at Texas Tech, 69 last year. Well, it's just not going to be the type of offense that he's going to see those type of targets. He caught 1 ball tonight for 9 yards, but he may win a whole lot more, and he's certainly on a much better team here at LSU than what we saw at Texas Tech. We do not have the defensive stats out yet. I was just curious to see if Joe Burrow took a sack on the night. I don't recall. There was the one key play in which, for a moment there, it looked with a 3-3 tie that Joe Burrow coughed the football up when he was engulfed in the pocket and the ball came free, and Miami scooped it up and ran it for a touchdown. But, of course, the ball was coming out of his hand, and it was clearly an incomplete pass. That was really Miami's last gasp at taking some kind of control of this game and being ultra competitive in this game, because after that, it was just a mess. DJ Dallas had a little bit of running room on a couple carries. He had 38 yards on 8 carries. He was pretty consistent. Travis Homer had a 17-yard run, 7 carries for 30. But Miami only ran 69 plays. Malik Rozier, 15 for 35 for 259. So he threw some passes in the fourth quarter that picked up some big yardage that puffed up the yardage numbers. 2 interceptions, 1 touchdown. The first interception was not his fault. It was deflected at the line. It went into the hands of Jacob Phillips, who ran for the touchdown to make it 27-3 and really broke the game open. And that's one of those fortunate bounces. LSU completely outplayed Miami. They were the better team on the night, but that particular play, that ball could have been deflected and just bounced to the ground. But it deflected right to Jacob Phillips. He ran for a touchdown. Those are the bounces of the game. We see them in every sport, especially the oblong ball, and where it could go is anybody's guess. But in that particular case, the deflected pass at the line went to Phillips. He ran it for a touchdown, and that pretty much sealed the deal. That gave us all the feeling that this is not Miami's night. LSU is just making every play. It's 27-3 now. Wow, this is out of hand. Jeff Thomas came up with some big plays. He caught the big 50-yarder down the field when Miami still had a little bit of life. 5 catches for $132. Lawrence Cager, 2 for 42. Caught a 36-yarder as well. Brian Hightower, 1 for 32. And at the point that Cager caught that 36-yarder, That was after LSU kicked the opening field goal. Miami came back on their second possession and hit two big passes, one to Thomas across the middle, the other one to Cager for 36 yards. And suddenly, bam, Miami's in business. Michael Irvin's pumping the fist on the sideline. They're down to the 21-yard line. But Miami in the red zone in 2018 thus far is Miami in the red zone in 2017. And that's got to be the big disappointment for Miami fans. Not that they can't play with Clemson or Alabama or whomever else. It's that what was broken last year, the final three games, is still broken. And that LSU, who many consider to be a flawed team, a team that had athletes and talent on the roster, but so unproven at quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and so flawed, dominated this game. Amon Richards disappeared. He was nowhere to be found. He caught one ball for 9 yards. We would have to break down the game tape and look play by play to see basically what happened there. I know that in much of the first half, when the game was still within reach, 3-3, 10-3, even 17-3, that I didn't think that Malik Rocher played horribly at that point. Basically, it was offensive line generated, but he didn't do anything that a top-flight quarterback would do to make up for a bad offensive line. And then the more the pressure mounted on him because of not just the physical pressure of the pass rush, but the pressure of the game mounted on Malik Rocher, the more he became scattershot, the more the throws missed their mark. And he started to show us with the high and wides to the left and right, the type of throws that we saw in the final three games of last year. And N'Kosi Perry was sitting at home, and Jaron Williams was third or fourth on the depth chart, and Cade Weldon may not be ready for this type of stage. And Mark Richt had to be thinking, if I had the guy in the bench that I truly believe could bring this team back against that defense, I would pull the trigger because this is too important. But I could lose a quarterback here. I could lose his psyche, his confidence for the entire season, so I'm not going to go there. But if N'Kosi Perry was ready to go and in the stadium and on the sideline, maybe Mark Richt has a different thought process. But he didn't have that option. Brian Hightower made a nice play on a catch for 32 yards and a touchdown. That was a really nice play by Hightower. This is the kid that in the spring game went crazy with 3 or 4 touchdowns that we talked about. Daryl Langham, of course, made the big catches last year. He had 2 catches for 14. DJ Dallas, a catch for 13 yards. Harley, 2 for 13. Again, Amon Richards, a 9-yard catch. And I know it's, in particular, Cam Underwood's seems to be his favorite player, and he talks glowingly about Amon Richards, who had a big freshman campaign 2 years ago, and then last year had his ankle injury problems and was never really a factor with 3 touchdown I think he only had 3 touchdown catches his freshman year. And so even though he was a freshman All-America with 49 catches, only 3 touchdowns, and then only 17 receptions last year, and then this performance this year. Again, wide receivers, we say this all the time, they are the most dependent players on the field. They have to have the quarterback deliver the ball. And then the quarterback, by extension, has to have the offensive line give them a chance to deliver the ball. So the wide receivers, it's tough to always determine their level of play. Now, we can determine it if they have a great game, that they played great. But if they're non-existent, it's kind of difficult to, without watching game tape and really analyzing whether they were just not thrown to, they were open, the offensive line didn't provide the protection for the quarterback, or were they not causing separation? Were they not running good routes? Were they not open? Or did the quarterback, for good reason, not have the confidence that he could throw them open or throw it into tight coverage and have the confidence that they would catch the ball? All right, I'm going to give week 2 a look and see what we've got on tap. I have lined up a number of guests for this week. I've got to say, in addition to just being happy that we're watching college football finally, and we've got fresh material to talk about, is that in addition to that, I was just grinding to a weary halt, cranking out previews and predictions. So I'm going to do that much sooner in the off season, much earlier in the off season next year. Orsinis Orca, thanks for joining us. Know you're a huge Miami fan. Thanks for jumping on the line. I know it's difficult for you. Have a good night, sir. Yeah, so we've got some big games. I was looking at them and I was trying to line up guests. So I just don't want to haphazardly grab whatever guests I can to talk about whatever games are going on for their particular team, because we cover all of college football and specifically the Power Five. And in the past, I was just trying to get guests on. So if Boston College was playing Wake, well, I'm interested in that, but most of you aren't. You want to hear about the big games. So we're going to focus on the big games. And if I don't get any guests, that's fine. We'll strike up the live streams and we'll talk it ourselves. But yeah, you can call in, of course. Buckeye State Sports. Here's the number. You're listening, 860-325-3687. And you got to be patient with me because I have not mastered the ability to answer it very fluidly. So it's a bit rough on that end because I can't go from the one screen to the screen where I have to activate the speaker. Here we go. We got Buckeye State Sports dialing in.
The call will start at the beep.
Buckeye State Sports. It's Mark Rogers TV. How you doing, man?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. What's going on tonight? Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
How's it going tonight, man?
Going good. Happy to see football play well.
Yeah, so what caught your attention this weekend?
Well, the U is not back. Texas is not back. And you know I had to say that Michigan has not won a game since Veterans Day, so.
Have you got anything for me?
Just want to talk some football here, you know.
All right. So I can't argue with any of that. Michigan's lost 4 consecutive games. Miami's lost 4 straight. Texas took on what we expect to be a team that maybe will win 2 or 3 games in the Big Ten, and they lost. So for a week 1, I would say, looking at the performances of those 3 teams, that I would give the biggest pass to Michigan because they played the best team, and they did it on the road, and it was a 1-score game. So I would give the best potential, the best team of those 3, in my estimation right now, is Michigan. And then Texas, for them to lose again to Maryland when they had all the incentive in the world to gain revenge after being embarrassed at home, giving up 51 points, and not to get that done, that's embarrassing. Because unless the Terps surprise both of us and the world, they're going to go 2-7 or 3-6 in the Big Ten. And that's who Texas just lost to. And then again, we got Miami in the big stage tonight, and they've lost 4 consecutive games, and it was not competitive. Now, if we'd be sitting here, Buckeye State Sports, and Miami had just lost 23-20 on a last-second field goal, I'd say, well, that's disappointing because they're supposed to be better than LSU, but they just got trucked.
Right, right. And the thing I'll just say about Michigan is I've been hearing all spring and all summer, if we just get a quarterback, When are the excuses going to stop for Jim Harbaugh? I know what but
I'm with you.
When's the excuses going to run out? You got your quarterback, you've got the elite defense, and you got mostly your guys in there. Honestly, Jim Harbaugh had more success with mostly Brady Hoke's players in his first 2 years than he has in his last 2 years.
This is true. So we understand that this season's not over yet. So don't count this one out. But last season was not good. You are right.
But also, it's the same. It's the same as.
Unfortunately, I'm losing you from time to time here. So you're saying it's kind of the same old story there.
Right.
Well, I agree. The bottom line is wins and losses. And if you're going to be paid one of the top 3 or 4 salaries in the nation and you go to Michigan and you are heralded as one of the best coaches in the nation, whether it be college or pro, you got to get the job done. And we're working on season 4 here. And I really wrestled with predicting what Michigan would do this year because I thought they would be really good. I think their roster is very talented, but I saw that schedule and knew that would be difficult. I think we've got another call coming in, but of course we're going to stay with Buckeye State Sports. You still there with me?
Start the call or to decline.
Hey, Buckeye State Sports. I think I had 2 calls coming in at the same time. We haven't quite worked out the switchboard efficiency of the phone burner. Apologize for that. So if anybody wants to call me back, certainly do so. The number is 860-325-3687. I'll get that posted on my videos so you guys can see that. Again, that's 860-325-3687. So I had a situation there where I had 2 calls coming in at the same time, and I tried to select one of them. I actually tried to select Buckeye State Sports since he was on the line with me, and then put the other one on hold, and I was unsuccessful. All right, let's give this a shot again.
The call will start at the beep.
Hello, this is Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who do we have on the line?
Okay, State Sports.
Oh, there he is. Sorry about that. I had another call coming in at the same time, and I was trying to put them on hold and keep you going at the same time, and I kind of screwed that up, apparently.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
You stay after Michigan there. I don't want to break your flow. So your thoughts on the Wolverines?
Well, it's similar to what it was. Like, I remember, go back to 2016 with Ohio State and how that ended with the last stretch of games.
Sure.
And how it was the struggles on offense, the play calling, receivers, whatever else. And then we lose to Oklahoma. And nobody is happy because it's the same old, same old. That's kind of what I'm getting at with Michigan and Miami, and to a degree Texas, because it's the same things that's been happening that are still happening.
So if you're making the call, if you're the athletic director and you have that power to make the call, what I'm hearing is that if you're at one of those schools, quote unquote schools, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Michigan, you're one of those top 6 or 7 schools. If you don't win a national championship, are your days numbered?
I think at Texas and at Miami, you have to, with the recruiting base and everything. You've
Sure.
got to be at least up there. It's a blue blood program. And they're not paying Jim Harbaugh, however much they're paying him, $9 million a year to lose these close games and struggle on offense, have a great defense. The days where a great defense can carry you are, well, defense can still carry you, but not to a championship like they could. You got to get an offense in there. And Jim Harbaugh's supposed to be this quarterback whisperer, and, you know, it's not working out. This is what, his 4th or 5th quarterback now in 4 years.
So he takes over a team that went 5-7. And as you mentioned before, he takes Brady Hoke's players and he makes it immediate impact in winning 10 games and winning a bowl game, finishing in the top 10. That's in 2015. Then he does the same thing in 2016. And I know Ohio State fans don't want to hear it, but there was a questionable decision made at the end of that game. He could have easily won the Big Ten championship in 2016. Do you agree with that?
I agree with that.
Okay.
Except
so
the spot was good.
Okay. Whether the spot was good, he can't control an inch of the football. You know what I mean? Like, they were right there. They were, whether the game was won or lost legitimately. And I agree. I don't think it was a bad call or not a bad call. I just think when officials are spotting a football with 10 players laying on top of each other, we know it's an inexact science. They lost to Ohio State fair and square. There were no bad calls in that game.
Right.
So, but my point was that he got his team prepared and they showed to be good enough to win a Big Ten championship that year. So I think if I read you, I think if I read you correctly, Buckeye State Sports, is that the real issue is 2017 and now 18. That up until then, he had pretty much done what he needed to do. He was building momentum. He was increasing. They were getting better. He was on the cusp. Then all of a sudden, last year, bam, they regressed. They declined.
Right. It's mostly Brady Hoke's player. His first 2 years, he goes 20-6. And since then, he's now hit 6 losses with only 8 wins. He's 8-6 since the start of last season.
Yep.
I understand some of it. You're not the better team in some cases, but in some cases, you just don't. Your offense doesn't look like it can take you anywhere, and that's the big thing. It's not different things. It's the same thing every time. You can't do the same thing over and over and expect a different outcome.
So if you were running the show in Ann Arbor, you've got a coach who you're paying a ton of money to, who has not met your expectations, who did for 2 years and then took a big step back last year and got off to a bad start this year, dropping a game that was a toss-up game against a good opponent, but still didn't get the job done. So what would be your thought in regards to what you need to see the rest of the year out of Harbaugh in Michigan for him to keep his job versus you pulling the plug?
Well, I don't think there's any way that they pull the plug this year. I mean, that schedule's just brutal. I'd be surprised if they get to 10 games before a bowl game, with road games against Michigan State and Ohio State and, of course, Penn State. And all you really need to say is they're the Big Ten East. Plus, they got Wisconsin. So I don't think there's anything that could really change my mind to fire him this year. But for the future, one, you need to get a good offense going, and you need to step up and get good recruits and everything to come up there and build the momentum back up the way that it was and start beating some of your rivals. He's 1-6. 1-6 against his top 3 rivals. And that doesn't really fly in Michigan, I don't feel like.
Sure.
Like if Urban was 1-6 against Michigan State, and Penn State, we wouldn't be happy here. I don't feel like that's how it should be up there.
Yeah, I've got to think that the Maize and Blue faithful are saying the same exact thing. We've got a guy on here that you've probably seen from time to time, Steve Dace, Michigan Podcast. And I saw a number of his tweets last night that basically said, okay, I'm done making excuses or trying to see how this is working out. Basically, this is who we are. We're not that program. We are not an elite program right now. We just aren't that good.
Right, and so was Braylon Edwards was tweeting last night as well. You can't find these tweets now, but he was saying some things I probably shouldn't say about how Michigan was playing.
Well, Braylon Edwards' teams weren't exactly world beaters. They weren't exactly elite teams that he played on.
Not saying they were, but he was, obviously he still cares.
Well, I think it's great that guys that have moved on to the NFL and made a ton of money still care about their school and want their team to win. But I just find it interesting. It would be one thing if Michael Irvin, let's say tonight, would go off on Mark Richt, having won a slew of national championships, and said, this is not good enough for Miami. But Braylon Edwards, who basically lived in an 8-4 state at Michigan, they did a little bit better than that a couple seasons, but basically they weren't great. They were very good. Is finding that the Jim Harbaugh run to be just deplorable.
And it hasn't been deplorable. I just don't see how you can be dropping off like this. Like, the excuse, and the cover wasn't totally fair. Brady Hoke's teams weren't horrible. But I just find it odd that Michigan, with Jim Harbaugh supposed to be this quarterback whisperer, this great coach, he's turned around. Everywhere he's been, he's taken them and he's turned them around within a few years.
Yep.
And I just find it odd that he 20-6 to 8-6. You've lost your last 4 games. You had Jake Rudock, the Iowa transfer, to Wilton State, to what's his name, Brandon Peters, who's my favorite quarterback of all time, John O'Corn. And now you bring in this guy. Michigan just needs a quarterback. That's what I've been hearing all offseason. Well, you're supposed to have your guy now. When is it going to feel some internal pressure?
So everything you've said makes total sense, because the thought process was, okay, if this guy's such a good coach that he took a 5-win team and made them a 10-win team without even any of his own recruits making an impact, now that he ups the recruiting from top 20, top 15 status up to like top 10 status and improves the recruiting, wow, what's going to happen when he gets 2 or 3 of his classes in here? Well, it's regressed. It doesn't seem to make a lot of sense.
Right. And Michigan's, I said it when he was hired. I said, we're going to be fine for a few years, but then he's going to start picking it up. And now I'm more scared of Penn State than I am of Michigan.
Sure.
And Penn State's been through some bad things, let's just say that. And, I remember James Franklin nearly being fired, and now look what he's done, So James Franklin's done nothing but get better. You've seen Wisconsin get better. Michigan State's always there. You can make a case that there are 5 coaches in the Big Ten than Jim Harbaugh, and I don't think that's the case. But it's arguable with how he's performed of late.
So I'm trying to take into consideration James Franklin's run at Penn State. So O'Brien was there in 12 and 13. So 2014, I believe, was James Franklin's first year, if I remember correctly. 2014. So they went, I believe, 7-6, 7-6 his first 2 years. They lost to Georgia in a bowl game. They beat BC in a bowl game. They went 7-6, 7-6, and then started the 2016 season with a loss to Pitt and the annihilation that they suffered 49-10 at the Big House. And at that point, people were like, okay, it's season 3. We should be better. We could put up with 7-6, understanding where the program had been with all the issues off the field and how that affected scholarships and the roster. We get that. But, man, it just doesn't seem like it's going anywhere. And then all of a sudden, he flipped the script and they go on the run and they win the Big Ten. And then they have another big year last year. And now, despite what happened on Saturday, I don't put a whole lot of stock in that yet. He's getting top 5 to 10 recruiting classes now, and they're on a roll. So I'm not discounting that could happen with Harbaugh. He still has the power, the resources, and the ability, based on what he's done in the past, his track record, to do the same thing at Michigan. I'm not predicting it, but I'm just saying I wouldn't be shocked.
For sure.
All right, Buckeye State Sports. So what do you think about this Ohio State TCU game in a couple weeks?
there's a lot of ways that this could go. I mean, I've heard that TCU is the greatest thing since sliced bread the past couple nights with someone in your chat. But TCU is fine. I think they'll create some problems for us. I don't think they're offensive.
Hey, Buckeye State Sports, I believe we lost you again. All right, if anybody else wants to call in, we got 860-325-3687. And if you've noticed, I'm trying to type with my left hand while I hold the phone with my right hand, so that hasn't proven too successful. So Bren Nelson making a comment that we were talking about Mark Rogers at State of the U's happy hour last night. I can only imagine what was said about me, so should I even ask?
The call will start at the beep.
Buckeye State Sports, you back with us?
No, this is Batch CFB Network
or
Batch Gaming.
There he is. Appreciate that.
Yep.
How you doing tonight, man?
Pretty good. So I'm not going to take too much of your time up here. You know, it's late out here, Eastern time zone. But just touching on what he was saying, I don't think Michigan's bad. I think Michigan's better at quarterback. Patterson turns the ball over in big moments, and against good defenses, he just turns the ball over. I mean, last year against Alabama and LSU, he had a combined touchdown to interception ratio of 0 to 5. 5 interceptions, 0 touchdowns. And this schedule coming up is a gauntlet.
Yes, it is.
One game that I highlight actually is late in September. Watch out for that game in Evanston, Northwestern. That Northwestern team looked pretty good against Purdue. They seemed to control the game when Clayton Thorson was in. I want to get your opinion a little bit on that. Do you think Northwestern could pull that off?
So I caught that entire Purdue game as well. I was really impressed that, as you mentioned, that Northwestern was basically playing to a certain handicap in that they had to play TJ Green, and the offensive production was noticeably hampered by him being in the game. There was a reason he was a walk-on. He's just not a very skilled quarterback. He doesn't have any playing time, even though he's a junior at this point. And Thorson even isn't up to 100%. And that was pretty obvious watching him hobble around out there. The thing I like about the Northwestern offense, that despite the tremendous workload that Justin Jackson took on over the last 4 years, and I commend the kid for carrying the ball and being the workhorse of that offense, this Jeremy Larkin is a more explosive, dynamic back. And he's going to be difficult for them to deal with. Now, the Michigan defense wasn't as dominant as I expected them to be last night against Notre Dame. They gave up a lot of big plays. I don't know if Northwestern's got the guys on the outside to exploit them as much as Notre Dame did, but I certainly trust Thorson to make better reads and decisions than Wimbush, and Wimbush seemed to be doing quite fine against the Michigan defense. So, yes, if Shea Patterson isn't that guy, and we get the same Michigan offense that we've gotten for the last half of a season last year and for that night in South Bend against a Northwestern defense that's pretty good, especially got some really good defensive ends, Patty Fisher at linebacker, some really good players. The secondaries lost quite a bit. They lost both their starting safeties who were really good. Yeah, that could be definitely a game.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you just said. Jeremy Larkin, he was impressive. I'm just going to say a couple more things about Michigan, then we're going to move on from that topic because that's kind of been tired now for a little bit. But okay, so the couple things I was going to say was I was really disappointed in Rashawn Gary's performance. Now it's only one game.
Mm-hmm.
I get that, but I kind of expected Gary to do a better job in containing Wimbush's ability to run the ball, because everyone's talking about Wimbush and how he was better throwing the ball. Yeah, he was better. He still wasn't great. And the other thing I will say is that offense seemed to click a little more. They were moving the ball a little more methodically with Dylan McCaffrey in the game. So that's kind of to take using Michigan this season and keep observing Michigan this season. And the second thing I was going to talk about was actually that Washington-Auburn game. And I wasn't really impressed with either team. Like, they're both tremendous teams. But I guess maybe me overrating both of these teams, but I thought both these teams were top 6, top 8 teams, and I didn't feel that way. I felt like certain moments both teams just kept making mistakes, couldn't finish drives, and I'm just curious what your thoughts are on both those teams.
Well, I certainly know why Washington couldn't finish drives is because Jake Browning was had half the Auburn defensive line in his lap most of the game. That defensive line is a wrecking crew. They have an excellent defensive front.
Yeah, I mean, that defensive front, I was saying in the first half that this defensive front for Auburn isn't really impressing me, but I only caught like the end of it because I was up in the horseshoe. So yeah, the little bit that I saw of the first half, I wasn't too impressed, but man, they really came out in the second half. And I was also impressed. A lot of questions with Auburn's offensive line. Their offensive line actually held up pretty decently well. So Auburn could be a contender, I guess, but I still have a little bit of questions with how well their secondary can hold up throughout the season and also how well that offensive line can play consistently. But if they can both step up, both those units step up, they are definitely going to compete with Alabama. All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you jumping on the line here. That was Bash Gaming, who has joined us a number of times on the live chat. Always appreciate his comments talking about Auburn and Washington. My quick take, as he asked right there, is that Auburn's got a formidable defensive line, and Derek Brown at linebacker. The entire front seven, I think, is a wrecking crew. They were exceptional. We've got to take into consideration that Trey Adams, the left tackle for Washington, missed the trip, didn't play in the game. He's one of the best offensive tackles in the Pac-12, certainly, and probably nationally. So they were missing him, and that was a big loss for them. The backup running back to Myles Gaskin is a really good player, as well as we get another call in.
The call will start at the beep.
Hello, this is Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hi, this is LV Live from New Jersey. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing just fine, and I appreciate you hanging with me. So understand that this is just the second time we've had the call-in number. So if I get a couple calls at the same time, I'm not too adept at managing the phone lines here on the cell phone. So I appreciate you jumping on the line here. How you doing tonight?
Hey, I'm pretty good, man. You do a pretty good show here. This is my first time calling in. I've seen you quite a few times, follow you sometimes, but I think you do a great job with college football, sister.
Thank you. I appreciate that. What's on your mind tonight?
So first, a couple of things. I'm a big USC fan, but I wanted to chime in on a couple of guys calling earlier about Miami. Excuse me, not Miami, but Michigan. I think the thing is that when you kind of look at what Harbaugh has done, I think he's done a great job there. The key with Michigan and even also to Miami is that when they've been great, they've had quarterbacks. I think when you kind of take a look at Shea Patterson as his first game, first of all, it's very, very tough. Very, very tough to win at Notre Dame. On the road at night, they've always played well. As great as Georgia was last year, they squeaked out of there with a victory last year.
That's right.
So that tells you how good Notre Dame is at home at night. They're very similar in some ways to Iowa. Iowa plays at night. It's just a different team. I think this game could have been the same game if it was played at Michigan under the lights. It would have been the same because I just think it was just momentum, opening season game. But I think that Michigan will make a turnaround. I think that defense is too good. I think Harbaugh's too good. And I think Shea Patterson will turn around. I think with it being the first game, first time in the system, the first time with the new offense, I think he'll pretty much make a smooth transition. I think Harbaugh is the quarterback whisperer. Perfect example. Look at what he did with Wilson Speight when they won that year, and they were pretty good. Like you said, it came down to that last play. He's got a pretty good rap sheet, you know, from what he did to 49ers and what he did, of course, with Andrew Luck. I don't see him kind of folding underneath this, but he has the quarterback now. So I think Michigan will be a lot better than what people think. So that's kind of like what I wanted to chime into about that.
All right, man. I appreciate the call. Thanks for joining us.
I just wanted to make a couple more comments too, if that's okay.
Sure.
One thing I did want to speak about is USC and how they looked yesterday against UNLV. I'm a big USC fan. I wanted to see how you felt about Clay Helton. And watching Clay Helton and his staff, my opinion, I think they've been saved by Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold was such a great talent that I think it covered up for a lot of Clay Helton staff's lack of experience, lack of structure, lack of preparation, because the team has been pretty up and down with the talent. I mean, they have 4- and 5-star talent very similar to Georgia, very similar to Alabama. And it just seems that when they see the production, what you prepare for and what you see, I think the product out there, it's not the same. So, I played football in high school and college, so I understand that you practice how you play. So there's a big difference in when you see USC out there and when you see certain teams and the type of talent that they have. I mean, they recruit well. I mean, they sell themselves. So my thing is that when you see the 4-star and 5-star kids come out and play there, and then you see the 4-star and 5-star guys play at Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama, they're totally different kids. And it's not that athletically wise, USC can't compete, because they can compete with all those guys. But as you know, everything starts on Monday. And if they're not preparing right, as far as coaching, as far as what they're doing on a daily basis, then you're going to see it on Saturday. And what I saw yesterday was very similar to what I saw in the Western Michigan game last year. And I just think that what I would hate is for a great talent like JT Daniels, for them to be hoping for him to be the savior and not give him the proper tools and things to pretty much be the best quarterback he could be for these next 3 years. Because I don't think he's staying 4. I think he's out of here in 3. I think he's that talented. But I mean, I just wanted to see how you felt about that.
So one thing that comes to mind that kind of backs up your thought process is that I heard from a number of different sources leading into the Cotton Bowl last year that to monitor and observe the approach that Ohio State took toward the Cotton Bowl versus what USC were light years apart, that Ohio State was there to win the game. Urban Meyer says, we're Ohio State. We play every game like it's the last game, the most important game. We don't take this as a fun trip. We don't take this as this is just an exhibition game. It's just a bowl game. We missed the playoff. It doesn't really matter. No, we're here to win, to show up on the big stage. And he worked that team hard during that time. Got indication that USC didn't necessarily take it that way. And you do feel as though there's a distinction between, obviously at USC, those people work very hard. The coaching staff, they work long hours. As you mentioned, the recruiting's been excellent for the most part. They lift the weights, they go to film room, but there's almost just that edge that you get at an Alabama, Ohio State, that this is serious business. This is almost like life or death. This is why we're here. And maybe it's not taken quite to that degree at USC. Now, the one thing that points to coaching, I think, in this as well, is that when USC has lost under Clay Helton, they have lost badly. And so it seems as though there's that 1 or 2 games a year when they show up against an opponent who's roughly got the same number of stars on the recruiting rankings down through the roster. And so it should be a comparable game, but they just show up like they did against Ohio State and Notre Dame, and they just don't have an answer.
Right, very true. I totally agree with you, and I think that's the issue, because when Pete was here, you kind of saw the difference. You saw Pete's approach. Pete's approach was competition. It was strictly based on, you know, who the best players are and the best players are going to play. You know, you practiced the ones against the ones. It was no twos against the ones. They didn't do that. You know, there was always the saying, practice was a lot harder than games, because you have, if you're a 5-star recruit wide receiver, you're going to go against a 5-star recruit corner on a daily basis, because what I see in practice is going to be probably harder than what I see on Saturdays. And I think for some reason that connection isn't there, and I think that's why, you know, of course, you know, the big-time coaches get paid the big-time money. So, of course, Nick Saban's going to have his guys prepared. Urban Meyer's going to have his guys prepared, because they understand, they get it, that this is how it has to be. You know, training camp in the off-season, that's got to be hard. It can't be easy. It can't be because you're at SC and because you've been here 2 years, that means you're going to play, you're going to start. No, that doesn't mean that. And I think that's where it's got to be understood and it's got to be looked at, because based on what I saw, and they were kind of, you know, I guess there was a lot of complaints. I was kind of reading like some blogs and kind of seeing some things. People were really upset because they're upset about the offensive line play. But my thing is that the offensive line, if the technique's not there or whatever's being coached, then you really have to look at the coaching staff, because it's the same thing. Nothing has changed, Mark. It's the same exact thing. And my issue is that when you get down to play the big games, like in Notre Dame at the end of the year, and of course, like Stanford next week, you know, what are they going to do? Because my thing is that we don't have Sam Darnold this year, and as great as he was, with him possibly being a, you know, Heisman Trophy winner, he struggled last year because it was no upward. You didn't see any change. You didn't see him getting better, and I fear that the same thing could happen with JT Daniels, because these guys aren't. I don't want to say because, you know, these guys have quite a few years coaching and the experience is there, but I think this level of college football they don't have experience with, and I think that's where they fall short when they go against the top tier programs. To your point, like Ohio State at the Cotton Bowl, because they were blown away by what they saw. But if that would have been Nick Saban or even Dabo Swinney, who's really come around there as a coach, it wouldn't have been okay, we don't know what to do. It would have been, okay, let's be excited, because this is why you come to Clemson. Just like this is why you come to SC for these games. You don't come to SC to play the Arizonas. You know you have to play them, but you come to SC to win national championships. You come to SC to play against the top tier programs in those neutral site games, because then that's when you get that legendary status, and that's when you pretty much, you know, of course, go into the pros and all those other things. So, that's kind of like what I want to chime in. But you have a great show, man. You're doing a really, really great job. You definitely just won yourself a new fan, man. So I truly, truly appreciate everything you do for college football.
I appreciate that, sir. I'm going to add one more point to your points, because it's something that I read time and time again in preparing for this season's previews and predictions, was that I read where a number of different coordinators talked about red zone offense and defense being in the hands of the coaches, where because of the space of the field and because of it being situational football, that the coaches play a lot into the red zone scheme, and the success going directly to the coaches. And USC, despite Darnold and RJ and Deontay Burnett and all the offensive weapons they had, was one of the worst red zone offenses in the nation last year. And so that seemed to hit me as well as being an issue with preparation and with coaching in those situations.
I totally agree. I mean, and that's where, you know, you have to go back to that, because it's got to be balanced. As good as JT Daniels is, and I think, like I said, I think he's going to be Cleveland in 3 years, he's got to have balance. And the way you have balance is you got to have, you know, you got to have a good, strong running game. They have 3 legit running backs. Stephen Carr was a 4 or 5-star running back coming out. I believe Akacentric Ware was a 4-star running back coming out of Texas. And I think Malapi, I think he was a 4-star, I think, coming out of Hawaii, I believe. So you have 3 legit backs that looked great yesterday. That looked really, really good. So you have to have that balance. Like he had 35 pass attempts. That's too high. with the running game that you have, it should not be that high. He should be maybe 20 for 24. It should be something like that. You know, because with that running game, it gives him that play action feel. It gives him the rollout feel because the running game is so well. But without any balance, then your offense pretty much, it's easy for the defense because they know what's coming. Because everything's a drop back, everything's an RPO. If you make it easier for the quarterback, and then you make it easier for him, then the game starts to slow down for him. But to your point, if you're at the goal line, USC has always been known as RBU. I mean, take a look. You know, Charles White, Reggie Bush, Lindo White. I mean, the list goes on and on. O.J. Simpson, Marcus Allen. I mean, we can go on and on about who they've had in the backfield. So my thing is power I, running up the 1 or 2 hole. That's it. I mean, to me, it's simple. There's no, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's very, very simple when you have the players that they have. But they have, I don't know what, so that's where for me, like I started off saying, I really, really have to look at the coaching because I'm being honest. If Clay Helton does not make it like at least 11-1, 12-1, 10-2, I mean, that's what people are thinking with this talent. You're gonna, I have a feeling you might see a Lane Kiffin situation where it might be a target. I'm being totally, and I know people might be like, "Oh no, I'm serious," because you cannot continue to have the talent that he has had, and based on the place that he's at Texas A&M, he's not at UCLA, he's not at Cal, he's at USC, and because of who he's getting, now the sanctions aren't there, so now you have no more excuses. And then that's when the pressure starts squeezing. Lynn Swan's going to have to make a decision because the boosters aren't going to be happy. I mean, it's just that simple. I mean, that's where you go to SC. You go to SC to win national championships, nothing less.
They also play in a division that should be a free pass to a Pac-12 championship game. They're not sitting there in the Big Ten East and staring at Michigan, Michigan State, Penn State, or sitting there in the SEC West and staring at Auburn, LSU, Alabama, Mississippi State. They're not sitting there staring at Clemson, Florida State, NC State, Louisville in that division. They're at a place where, and this is not taking anything away from Arizona State. UCLA could certainly do something eventually with Chip Kelly and has been a top 15 to 25 program in the past, but they by far are the program in that division. And so they should own that division. They should, even on a down year, almost have a automatic trip to the Pac-12 championship game.
Very true. Very true. You're right on. But it was great talking to you, Mark, man. Keep on doing what you're doing. All right, pal?
I appreciate that. I'm going to ask you one other thing because this is the first time we've talked. I don't know how long you've been watching me. So we used to talk a lot of USC football here because I had a number of contributors at the time, number of guests that I could contact. And unfortunately, for various reasons, I don't have those contacts. They're not doing the same work right now. So I'm looking for USC guests. So any favorite people that you read or listen to out there that I could grab to get on the show?
Oh yeah, man. I mean, always Ryan Abraham. You know,
well, he's one of them. I just traded emails with him just yesterday, and unfortunately,
Shotgun Sprouling, Keelior, on the recruiting piece.
Yeah.
Gerard Martinez out there. They do pretty good work, man. Alicia Del Toro, they're pretty good also. But yeah, they do great work out there, man. That's really who I really get a lot of my information from.
Okay.
And you pretty much are right on, but that's who I would definitely love for you to have like on a regular basis because they're definitely also too. A caller that he usually gets on, I think will be great for you to really speak to. Is a guy named Harvey Hyde. He's amazing. It'll be great for you to have him on as well.
Good stuff. Thank you so much. Don't be a stranger. We appreciate you coming on.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Have a good night. All right. That was, I think I lost his handle here. It was back in the chat. LV Live. So this is the first time that, that I've been able to see him on the chat, and I was fortunate enough to get him through on the call, and he had some interesting points to make on the state of USC football under Clay Helton. That is certainly a situation where you could list the defense for Clay Helton, winning a Rose Bowl for the first time in a long time, winning I believe it was the 2008 season against Penn State. So winning a Rose Bowl for the first time in about a decade, and then winning a Pac-12 championship for the first time in 9 years. But then on the flip side, if you really put into context who they're beating, how much they're beating them by, and who they're struggling against and by how much, it puts a different spin on where Clay Helton has this program right now versus what should be accomplished at USC. Especially, again, my final point was in that division, they should win that division 4 out of every 5 years, and the rest of the division, the rest of the teams should take the other year out of the 5. That's about what the setup should be based on tradition, resources, facilities, recruiting, all of it put together, location as well. All right, guys. Man, we've been talking college football all day and all night here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. I appreciate your support. I appreciate the help that you've been. Somebody had asked it on the live chat, and I put it in the live chat, but I'll state it that if you'd like to join the newsletter that's going out for the first time tomorrow afternoon, then just send your email address to MarkRogersTV@gmail. MarkRogersTV@gmail. We'll get you out the weekly newsletter on Monday. We're not going to clog up your inbox or clutter it up with anything else, but the one mailing per week. And if anybody's got a great name for the group, deliver it my way. That's just not my thing, is to come up with clever nicknames. Elliot has done a nice job of sending me about 8 or 9 nicknames, but nothing's really hit home yet. So we appreciate it. Again, the story of the weekend, probably at this point, considering the expectations of the two programs, LSU 33, Miami 17. It wasn't that close. Of course, Notre Dame put it on Michigan last night at 24-17. Michigan State and Penn State struggle. We'll be back to talk Florida State and Virginia Tech tomorrow night. Hope to see you soon. You have a great night. And again, college football's back. And despite whether your team's winning or losing, that's a good thing. We'll see you soon.